Chapter 5650. 10,000 Miles of Red Star Will Live Up to Your Expectations. A Powerful Character, Urban Romance, JAEQI Chapter 5650. A powerful character. Xia Yunin thought they were the rich ladies who hung out with Madame Xiao. I always thought they were her friends. He gritted his teeth even harder. What on earth does she want to do? What good will it do her to ruin Sixth Brother's reputation? Why? Xia Yue wanted to know too. She looked at Xia Jinyuan, who was completely unaffected, to see if she could find any clues from his expression. After looking at him for a while, she saw that his expression was normal. Instead, he raised his eyes and looked at her lightly. Xia Yue asked directly, "Do you know the reason? Was that why he was so calm?" Xia Jinyuan sneered. A cold smile appeared on his handsome face. Her real motive is unknown. Her current motive should be to force me to acknowledge her as my mother. I'm still thinking about what she plans to do after she acknowledges you as her mother. Xia Jinyuan did not think that Madame Xiao was so stubborn about acknowledging him as her son. It was all because she suddenly realized that she wanted to be a good mother. If that was the case, she wouldn't have given him the black chicken soup with motherwort. Xia Yunin thought about how he had been schemed against by Madame Xiao. He sat down and sighed. He suddenly felt that Sixth Brother was really pitiful. If she really has a plan, then you have to be careful. She's doing it for the sake of meeting you. Please pay attention to your eyes after reading for a long time. Old Madame took a big detour and got me into her trap by acknowledging her as her goddaughter. I don't even dare to have a girlfriend. I'm no different from a monk when it comes to self-cultivation. You're such a powerful person. I think you should stay in the army and not come back to the capital. If she can't find you, she'll slowly let go of whatever plan she has. Xia Jinyuan used to think so too, but now, he no longer thought so. Ever since Ms. Xiao suddenly returned to China and rushed to him to beg for his forgiveness, Xia Jinyuan began to be wary of her. The appearance of Tang made him believe that Ms. Xiao had an ulterior motive. However, he did not want to provoke her, so he did not investigate in secret. He didn't investigate, but his father did. Madame Xiao had returned to China, looked for Commander-in-Chief Xia, and then tangled with Xia Jinyuan. In Commander-in-Chief Xia's impression, his ex-wife was a woman who would easily make promises, but would definitely not make any mistakes. When she was young, in order to leave as soon as possible, she swore that she would never return to the family Xia and would never let old Six know of her existence. Now that she had broken her vow, Commander-in-Chief Xia became suspicious and secretly investigated his ex-wife's life abroad. It would have been better if he didn't investigate, but once he did, Commander-in-Chief Xia took several hours to recover from his shock. That was why he later told Xia Jinyuan not to meet with Madame Xiao, and asked Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian not to return to Beijing as often as possible. Who would have thought that after a few years, his ex-wife would still be so clingy? She even came to the family Xia on the big day of old Six's engagement, crying and making a fuss, disturbing old Master Xia and old Madame Xiao. Commander-in-Chief Xia rushed back to the family Xia with a cold expression. Old Madame Xiao did not let Madame Xiao get up. Madame Xiao, who wanted to show weakness, gritted her teeth and continued to kneel until Commander-in-Chief Xia appeared. When Xia Jinyuan saw his father return, he went up to him and reminded him, "Old man Xia, your ex-wife has been kneeling for an hour and a half. She has a strong will and I admire her. You have to be careful and don't fall for her beauty trap again." Madame Xiao was a great beauty when she was young. Xia Jinyuan had always thought that his father married her because of her beauty. Until now, he still thought so. Commander-in-Chief Xia raised his leg and kicked him. "Did you have fun looking for your father?" Chapter 5651. 10,000 Miles Red Star Lives Up to Your Expectations. The Old Tree Blossoms, Urban Romance. JQ. The old tree blossoms. There was a difference in his attitude towards Madame Xiao as a father and as a son. After all, Madame Xiao was Commander-in-Chief Xia's ex-wife. They fell in love with each other, shared the same bed, had a child together, and then went their separate ways. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not hold a grudge because he knew that he was partly responsible for the failure of this marriage. Therefore, when Madame Xiao returned, Commander-in-Chief Xia also treated her as a friend and did not think of doing anything to Madame Xiao. However, he did not expect that Madame Xiao's motive for returning was not simple. She came for Xia Jinyuan and also for family Xia. After finding out about this, Commander-in-Chief Xia reminded Xia Jinyuan. Xia Jinyuan, who had dodged nimbly, laughed. I was telling the truth, but you were so guilty that you hit me. If you fall for the honey trap again, Commander-in-Chief Xia, from now on, your son will change his surname to Fu and will no longer acknowledge you as his father. He was really worried that Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had been single for decades, would suddenly fall in love with Madame Xiao. Commander-in-Chief Xia was so angry that he laughed. As long as you are willing, you can quickly change your surname. I will discuss letting Xiao Ye's surname be Xia. I will definitely make a profit. When he heard Xia Yunin and Xia Yiwei laugh, he thought to himself, how, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. Are you looking down on sixth brother? Xia Jinyuan did not care. Then you will only make a loss and not make a profit. My wife will not be willing to take the surname Xia. You should go and send Madame Xiao away. Madame Xiao is very angry today. Commander-in-Chief Xia, whose face had turned pale, stopped smiling and his eyes turned cold. He said to Xia Jinyuan, I have something to say to her. Come in and listen. Just listen and don't cause trouble. Say something? He even warned Xia Jinyuan not to make trouble. Xia Jinyuan's eyes darkened. He thought to himself, has old Xia found something? Xia Yiwei and Xia Yunin glanced at each other discreetly, then moved from the side hall of the main hall to the innermost room where guests could rest. In the rear courtyard, Ho Zi, who had just finished comforting the twins, came over. When he saw the worried expression on Xia Yiwei's face, he came over and gently put his arm around his wife's shoulder. He smiled and said, Uncle is back. With him around, everything will be fine. Besides, sixth brother isn't a pushover. He won't let anyone bully his family Xia. Uncle and sixth brother won't let the family have a headache over these things. The father and son will definitely handle it well. You don't worry. Xia Yunin agreed and nodded with a smile. Brother-in-law is right. Sixth brother is not someone who will be bullied. Although Madame Xiao is his biological mother, he has no feelings for her. He will not let himself suffer because of Madame Xiao and let Madame Xiao be bullied. Old Master didn't even show up, which means that Madame Xiao knows what to do. She even asked Uncle to rush back. I think that after tonight, Madame Xiao won't dare to come again. Xia Yunin, who had been in the business world for a long time, was even more scheming than Xia Jinyuan. She had already made up her mind, and was certain that Madame Xiao would not be able to get away with it tonight. In the main hall, Madame Xiao, who was kneeling, saw her ex-husband enter with a cold expression. For some reason, her heart thumped violently, and she felt an inexplicable sense of panic spreading from her heart. Seeing her kneeling, Commander-in-Chief Xia instructed Xia Jinyuan to help her up. Go help her up first. Don't hurt your knees. If others see this, they will think that we did something to her. Commander-in-Chief Xia had never forced Xia Jinyuan to do anything to Madame Xiao. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not interfere with his son's refusal to call his ex-wife mother. Chapter 56-52. 10,000 Miles of Red Star lives up to your expectations. Panic, urban romance. JQI to be flustered, however, it wasn't good to let her talk while kneeling. They had to help her up and talk slowly. Xia Jinyuan obeyed and walked over to help her up. Madame Xiao, you should get up first. If you have something to say, we can talk it out. Kneeling isn't something our family Xia likes. Madame Xiao didn't want to get up. Madame Xiao slammed the table and said to Xia Jinyuan, "Don't worry about her. Since she wants to kneel, then kneel. She came to family Xia to cause trouble tonight. I'm already giving her face by not coaxing her directly." "Mom, you have high blood pressure. Calm down. If you have something to say, we can talk about it slowly." Commander-in-Chief Xia persuaded Madame Xiao. Between his ex-wife and Madame Xiao, his mother was naturally more important. He had to give his ex-wife some respect. He couldn't give her anything else. Madame Xiao insisted on not getting up. Even though she had been kneeling for more than an hour and her knees were hurting, she still held on and said to Commander-in-Chief Xia, "Just now, I couldn't hold it in outside and cried. I made Madame Xiao and Old Master angry. I'm kneeling now to apologize. As long as Madame Xiao can calm down, I'm willing to kneel for a night." "I won't let you kneel in family Xia for a night," Madame Xiao said calmly. "Now that Xinhui is back, we'll settle the matter between you and family Xia tonight. Come. Please pay attention to your eyes after reading for a long time. Tell me your purpose first. Just tell me your purpose. Cut the crap. It's getting late. I want to rest early." Commander-in-Chief Xia's face was full of guilt. As a son, he had implicated his elderly parents. It was really embarrassing. "Mom, sit down and listen. I've also investigated what Schumann wants to do when she comes back. I know a thing or two. Listen, don't be angry." Madame Zhao's pupils constricted. "Xia Xinhui has investigated it? He knows a thing or two. No, that's impossible. How could he possibly investigate?" Madame Xiao didn't really believe him. She secretly observed him, and saw that her ex-husband looked very confident, as if he had really found something. Suddenly, Madame Xiao panicked. I knew she wouldn't come back so easily." The old madam wasn't angry this time. Instead, she looked like she understood, but her voice became colder. "Xiao Schumann, you go first. I want to hear what you have to say." "What do you want to say?" There were too many things she wanted to say, but she didn't dare to say them now. She didn't know what her ex-husband had found out, and she didn't know what he knew. A single sentence from him had ruined all her plans, and she didn't know where to start. Xia Jinyuan did not sit down. Instead, he stood silently by the side. He was afraid that it would be too difficult for Ms. Xiao to speak first. Madame Xiao, who didn't dare to speak, was under great psychological pressure under the three pairs of eyes. She swallowed hard and finally spoke, but her voice was very hoarse. "I don't have a motive. I really don't have a motive. I just want to see more of Yuan and make it up to him. I don't have a motive." Yes, she didn't have a motive. She really didn't have a motive. Madame Xiao kept comforting herself in her heart. As long as she believed in herself, she would be able to suppress the panic in her heart. She didn't have a motive. Even if Xia Xian found out something, she didn't have a motive. The old madam looked at her son. "She's a little stubborn. She doesn't dare to say it. She's guilty. It seems that the things you've found have made her wary and ruined her plans. From the first time I met your ex-wife, I told you that you wouldn't last long with her. You have strong principles and you do things on your own. You don't know how to coax people, so how can she be happy?" Chapter 56-53. Speaking of the past, Madame Dowager sighed with emotion. Furthermore, she has no principles when it comes to doing things, but she has a strong sense of purpose. Everything she does is centered on herself. She only hopes that everyone will acknowledge her and act with her as the center of everything. You even have different attitudes toward life and the way you handle things. How can you last long? Sigh, I was too careless back then. I thought that after your divorce, she swore that she would no longer have anything to do with the Xia family. I actually believed the words of a selfish woman who wanted to achieve her goals. Madame Dowager was not as angry as before. As long as she knew the purpose of the visit, everything would be explained. Family Xia changed from passive to active. The honest one should be Madame Xiao, who wanted to leave the family Xia no matter what. There was no point in bringing up the past now. Madame Dowager said calmly, Xinhui already knows your purpose. If you still have sixth brother in your heart, you should ask to leave. You are sixth brother's mother and you gave birth to him. I am grateful to you. For sixth brother's sake, I will leave you some dignity. Go, Xiao Shuman. There is no place for you in the family Xia anymore. Sixth brother doesn't care about you as his mother. Leave some dignity for yourself. Go. Go far away and don't come back. Don't waste time and sixth brother will hate you in the end. Madame Dowager, who was kind, could not deliberately make things difficult for her. For sixth brother's sake, she had to give Madame Xiao some dignity. It was up to Madame Xiao whether she wanted to be shameless or not. Commander-in-Chief Xia did not want to raise his head and put it down gently. In addition, his ex-wife had been kneeling and refusing to leave. Commander-in-Chief Xia understood that she was now confronting him silently. She wanted to see what he had found out. Well, since she wanted to confront him, he would say it. Shuman, ever since your romantic husband fell ill, he became addicted to gambling 15 years ago. You used to think that you could live on by guarding your assets and living separately. As soon as he opened his mouth, he talked about Xiao Shuman and the others' lives abroad. Madame Xiao, who was kneeling, clenched her hands and her jaw was very tight. Xia Jinyuan's gaze was slightly cold. He, who was standing lazily, straightened up slightly. You don't want to take care of your sick husband anymore, but you also want to take all the property for yourself. So, when you found out that your husband was involved in gambling, you began to secretly transfer the property. On one hand, you were very good to him, and on the other hand, you secretly changed his medicine. Shu Man, I'm not wrong, right? That's right, Xia Xinhui wasn't wrong. He really found it, Madame Xiao, whose body was trembling slightly, raised her head. Tears streamed down her face as she defended her actions. I don't want to do this either. But life is too difficult. I have to plan for myself. I have to plan for my future. I have to do this. He was sick, and he was in so much pain. I watched him suffer every day, and my heart ached for him. I did it for his own good, for his sake. I can't bear to see him live in such pain. I'm only doing this because I feel sorry for him, because I love him. It's so painful, so painful. It's better to be free as soon as possible. Sob, sob, sob. I'm doing this for his own good. I'm thinking for him. Sob, sob, sob. Madame Xiao was so agitated and emotional that she cried. Even Madame Xiao, who was in her 80s or 90s, was deeply shocked by her logic. Life was difficult. She could barely understand that she was planning for herself, but for her husband's sake, she secretly changed his medicine. This, Madame Xiao, who was already half dead, really couldn't understand. Chapter 56-54. Xia Jinyuan was shocked by Madame Zhao's shamelessness. He really didn't expect it. He didn't expect it at all. Mrs. Xiao, you're killing someone, he said coldly. Your husband wanted to live, so he insisted on taking medicine every day. You, on the other hand, are having a hard time because of your husband's illness, so you want to kill him for your own sake. TSK. You're really something. You're willing to abandon your family for your own sake, and you're willing to kill someone for your own sake. I'm really glad that you didn't lead me astray when you left family Xia. Example speaks louder than words. If he really had such a selfish mother who kept saying that she was considerate of others, Xia Jinyuan might really be led astray. Mrs. Xiao did not give in. She cried until her voice trembled. No, I didn't kill anyone. That's my husband. How could I kill him? It's all because he's in so much pain. He tells me every day that he's in so much pain. He tells me every day. What can I do? I don't want him to be in so much pain. I don't want our last days together to be so hard. I don't want that, I don't want that. She thought so naturally and believed that she was right. No matter what others said, she would not listen to them. The old madam waved her hand at Xia Jinyuan, indicating that he should stop talking. Commander-in-Chief Xia sighed and said, "Your life isn't so hard. Your husband has enough money to treat his illness. Even if he's addicted to gambling, you're still rich." "Well, that's not the point. We should talk about why you came back. Shu Man, you're too considerate of yourself. You and your husband have already divorced, so why weren't you satisfied with your share of the assets? Why did you go back and kill him in the end?" "I didn't kill him. I didn't." Mrs. Zhao's voice suddenly became shrill. "You didn't find out the truth at all. You're wrongly accusing me. I didn't kill him. He fell down by himself. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. If it has nothing to do with you, why did your husband's brother look for you? And why did you come back to China? Why did you come to the Xia family to mend the relationship between you and sixth brother that no longer exists? Shu Man, you're deceiving yourself too much. You think too highly of yourself. You think that I can't find anything. You think that as long as you're willing to turn back and cry, sixth brother will forgive you and treat you well. As for you, you found someone new to rely on. In the future, if you have any problems, you can ask sixth brother to step in. If sixth brother can't step in, he'll ask the family Xia to step in and help you deal with it. This is what you want, and he believes that it will definitely be as you wish. What you didn't expect was that sixth brother didn't recognize you at all. Your plan was delayed again and again, and you were terrified. So, even though you knew that Madame Li was up to no good and that she had been laughing at you, you still got along with her and got to know more people through Madame Li, so that they would not dare to act rashly against you. Shu Man, you are really smart. No matter how hard it is, you will still let yourself live quite well. I admire you very much. I don't care how you live your life, but... At this point, Commander-in-Chief Xia's eyes were filled with a chilling coldness. But I can't tolerate you plotting against the Xia family. Chapter 56-55. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Commander-in-Chief Xia was a very principled person. Even if someone wanted to mess with him in private, he would not say anything. However, if the other party implicated his family, that would be crossing the line. However, the smart Ms. Xiao obviously missed this point. Perhaps it was because she had been found by her ex-husband's family and was anxious that she did not consider the big picture as she usually did. That was why she leaked the information and angered Commander-in-Chief Xia. In order to get close to Xia Jinyuan, the smart Ms. Xiao had tested him time and time again. As soon as she returned to the country, she immediately began to test her and brought Madame Li to test her. Ever since that time, she felt that she had tested out how much old Madame and old Master Xiao valued Xia Jinyuan. Hence, Madame Xiao decided to start with Xia Jinyuan. She wanted to first coax Xia Jinyuan into acknowledging her as his biological mother. After that, she would make Xia Jinyuan take the initiative to look for old Madame and old Master Xiao. Since old Madame Xiao and old Master Xiao valued Xia Jinyuan so much, they would naturally comply with Xia Jinyuan. In that case, Ms. Xiao would be able to rely on her family Xia again. In the end, after using Mrs. Li to test his family Xia, Xia Jinyuan was not fooled at all. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Ignore Ms. Shaw. Seeing that there was no way out, Madame Xiao probed again, which was the one in the hospital. When she went to the hospital to visit the injured Xia Jinyuan, she was politely asked to leave and had a short chat with Commander-in-Chief Xia. From this conversation, Madame Xiao deliberately told Commander-in-Chief Xia that the Du family had their eyes on Xia Jinyuan. She thought that with her relationship with the Du family, Commander-in-Chief Xia might want to use her to find out about the Du family's movements for the sake of her son. However, she did not expect that what she got in return was a warning from her ex-husband. He did not bother to get any information from her at all. From this test, she found out that her ex-husband, who had not started a new family after the divorce, did not still have her in his heart like what Madame Li had said. This also made her give up the idea of reconciling with her ex-husband and think of other ways. It could be said that Madame Xiao, who had returned to China for a few years, had thought of all kinds of ways to accept Xia Jinyuan, but there was only one result. It was impossible to get close to Xia Jinyuan. She wanted to take it slow and steady, but the current situation did not allow her to do so. Her ex-husband's family had already made new moves, so she had to speed up. Therefore, with the scene of Madame Xiao crying in front of the family Xia tonight, she wanted to let the happy family Xia see her pitiful state. As long as there was one person who pitied her, she could make good use of it and use it as a pretext to make a fuss. Moreover, she also thought that if she cried at the door on Xia Jinyuan's auspicious day, old Madame and old Master Xiao would mediate a few words in order to keep the peace. At that time, she would kneel down and admit her mistake, repent, and ask her ex-husband to say a few words on her behalf so that Xia Jinyuan would understand her. Then, she would slowly do some things and completely win over Xia Jinyuan's heart. That was her plan and she thought it would work. However, she did not expect that her ex-husband would find out about her past, what she had done, and what she was thinking. Madame Xiao panicked. She was so panicked that cold sweat broke out on her back. She was so panicked that she could not calm down and find another excuse to escape. Old Madame Xiao was so angry that her vision turned black. Shameless, shameless! How could there be such a shameless person in this world? For her own sake, she would even use her own flesh and blood. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its own cubs, but this woman was so cruel. Chapter 56-56. 10,000 miles Red Star lives up to your expectations. Xia Jinyuan saw that Madame Dowager's expression was not good, so he hurriedly poured tea for her. Grandma, don't be angry. There's nothing to be angry about. You know that she's always been this kind of person, so there's nothing strange about what she does. I know that in my heart, so I won't fall for her tricks. It's not worth it to get angry because of her. On the other hand, Xia Jinyuan was very calm. He had never had any hope for Madame Xiao and had never treated her as his own mother. Therefore, whatever Madame Xiao did was a scheme by a stranger. Xia Jinyuan would not be angry, but would find a way to get back at her. Tonight, if Commander-in-Chief Xia did not investigate Madame Xiao, Xia Jinyuan would take the initiative to investigate and then take the initiative to attack her. Now that even Madame Xiao's motive was clear, Xia Jinyuan did not take Madame Xiao seriously. To comfort Madame Dowager, he said to Commander-in-Chief Xia, "You have to pay with your life for murder. Madame Xiao has done something wrong. I suggest that you inform the embassy as soon as possible so that the embassy can contact the local police and extradite Madame Xiao as soon as possible. A murderer in our country is no different from a time bomb. Let's get rid of her as soon as possible so that everyone can rest assured. Cut the crap and get straight to the point. Take note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. Let's get to the point." Madame Xiao, who was kneeling, was heartbroken by her own son's heartlessness. She was so hurt that tears streamed down her face and her heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. "Ah Yuan, even you misunderstood me? I really didn't." Xia Jinyuan did not even look at her. What misunderstanding? What misunderstanding was there? It was just Madame Zhao's sophistry. She was really good at sophistry. She was wrong, but she thought she was right. She was thinking hard for others, but they all misunderstood her. Tsk, how pitiful! But who would care? No one cared. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't want to bother with her. Seeing that she was still trying to defend herself, Commander-in-Chief Xia's heart was desolate at this moment. "Shu Man, did you change because of you? Or is it because I never understood you? That year, when sixth brother was injured, you specially came to the hospital to visit him. I even put in a good word for you in front of sixth brother, saying that you were worried about him. I also think that even if the Dew family is investigating sixth brother, as his mother, you definitely won't harm him. Later, everything told me that I was wrong, very, very wrong. For your own sake, you framed old fifth, tormented my parents, and hoodwinked old sixth. Shoe man, you stirred up a storm in the city all by yourself, making everyone think that old sixth is unfilial. You just want to make more and more trouble, and finally force old sixth to come out and apologize to you, and then acknowledge you as his son. For your own sake, you don't care about whether others are good or bad, and you don't treat others as human beings at all. Shoe man, your selfishness is terrifying. Every sentence hit Madame Zhao's psychological defense line. If it were anyone else, they would have run away because of guilt. But Madame Zhao didn't. She collapsed on the ground, heartbroken. Why are you all treating me like this? I clearly didn't do anything wrong, so why are you all misunderstanding me? Why is it that all of my good intentions have changed in your eyes? I didn't hurt anyone. I've done so many good deeds, so why would I hurt anyone? Why are you all wronged? Why are you all targeting me? What do I have to do to satisfy you? Tell me, will you? Tell me, okay? Chapter 56-57. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-57. Betrayal. She cried and begged, as if she had suffered a great grievance. The whole world had betrayed her, the whole world was against her, and the whole world did not understand her. The old lady didn't want to listen anymore. She got up and walked towards Madame Zhao. Madame Zhao, who was complaining about her grievances, saw it from the corner of her eye. She shrank back slightly and lowered her head. She supported herself with one hand on the ground and the other on her chest. She continued to cry sorrowfully. Xiao Shuman, our family Xia's floor has been dirted by your tears. Now wipe the floor of my house properly. The old madam thought that her tears were dirty. Madame Zhao cried again and looked up at her ex-husband. Xinhui, what about you? Do you think so too? As her son, Xia Jinyuan was on the verge of vomiting. He wanted to laugh even more. He laughed and said to his father, Dad, your ex-wife is such a weirdo. Back then, were you highly short-sighted, or were you blinded by lard to take a fancy to such a person? I really don't understand. Back then, you were a handsome, talented, and good-looking man. Why did you fall for someone who can act, cry, and pretend? And was she trying to appeal to you again, and beg you to take pity on her, and grant her her wish for the sake of her former state? I'll tell you in advance. If you're blinded by her again, Grandma, you'll probably lose a son or a grandson in the future. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. I'd rather have one less son. Old Madame Gu was so domineering that Xia Jinyuan felt at ease. Commander-in-Chief Xia's face darkened as he was embarrassed by his own son's words. It's said that when we were young, we were all rash. Who would have thought too much? Hurry and help old Madame back to her room to rest. I'll handle this. Don't. If I don't see her leave with my own eyes today, I won't be able to sleep tonight. The old man waved his hand decisively and said what Xia Jinyuan was thinking. Xia Jinyuan said seriously, Dad, when are you going to take action? I'm still waiting. Commander-in-Chief Xia glanced at Madame Zhao and then at his son. He lowered his head and said to Madame Zhao, who was still kneeling and refusing to leave, Shuman, I've already informed the embassy. You'd better pack up and go back as soon as possible. Don't be in a hurry and leave behind many valuable things, which will benefit others. Madame Zhao, who was so flustered that she could only cry to cover up her panic, was angered again. Xia Xinhui, you're good, you're good. We were once husband and wife, yet you're so heartless. Shoo man, it's only when you're here that I'm going back. It can't be that you're the only one coming and I'm not going back. For the sake of our relationship as husband and wife, I've always been polite to you when you visited so many times. This time, I really can't be polite anymore. It has nothing to do with being heartless. It's just business. Commander-in-Chief Xia sighed. Only his ex-wife could not see the current situation clearly. No, it wasn't that she couldn't see the current situation clearly. In the end, she was just too selfish and took things for granted. Could Madame Xiao continue to stay at Family Xia? Of course not. She got up and left with the words, "You're heartless, and I'm so wronged." The moment she walked out of Family Xia's door, Madame Xiao put away all the emotions on her face and raised her hand to slowly wipe away the tears on her face. She then turned back and looked at the door of Family Xia with a gloomy expression. She and Family Xia were still not on good terms even after decades. Madame Xiao retracted her gaze and returned to her car. After sitting for a while, she started the car and left. Chapter 56-58. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-58. Urban Romance. Chapter 56-58. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Commander-in-Chief Xia and Xia Jinyuan were standing in front of Old Master Xia, listening to him lecture them. Old Master Xia was lecturing his son, not his grandson. Since there's something wrong with this woman, you should have sent her away long ago. Why did you keep her until today? Look at this, look at this. Everyone is unhappy now that she has caused such a ruckus on such a good day. Let me tell you, if you anger your mother to death, I'll see how you're going to deal with it. When you meet this Xiao Shuman, you procrastinate. No wonder she asked you if you think so just now. From your attitude, even I misunderstood if you still have feelings for her. Xia Jinyuan silently turned his head away. He almost thought that his father had other thoughts about Ms. Xiao. Dad, it's nothing. Don't make a fuss. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just as he was about to say something, the phone in his trouser pocket vibrated. Commander-in-Chief Xia had to stop talking and take out his phone. It was a series of numbers that were all zeros. It was obvious that it was a fake number. He glanced at it and winked at Xia Jinyuan. "I'm going out to take a call," he said to the old man and quickly left the room. After the door was closed, Xia Jinyuan frowned thoughtfully. He knew that old man Xia would not let a murderer off the hook. Once he found out who the murderer was, he would immediately bring the murderer to justice. So why was old man Xia so slow in dealing with Ms. Xiao? Could it be that there was another reason? Just as she thought of this, Master Xia's vigorous voice rang out. "Sixth brother, why do I think your father is so good?" Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Are you hiding something from us? Quick, go and listen to what he said. Xia Jinyuan did not move. If he really had other plans, he wouldn't have told us just now. Even if I heard what he said, I wouldn't have been able to guess everything. Besides, do you think I can hear anything in front of him? He's much stronger than me. I'm afraid I'll be discovered as soon as I show my head. Commander-in-Chief Xia and Xia Jinyuan were standing in front of Old Master Xia, listening to him lecture them. Old Master Xia was lecturing his son, not his grandson. Since there's something wrong with this woman, you should have sent her away long ago. Why did you keep her until today? Look at this, look at this. Everyone is unhappy because of this mess on such a good day. Let me tell you, if you anger your mother to death, I'll see how you're going to deal with it. When you meet this Xiao Shuman, you procrastinate. No wonder she asked you if you think so just now. From your attitude, even I misunderstood if you still have feelings for her. Xia Jinyuan silently looked away. He almost thought that his father had other thoughts about Ms. Xiao. Dad, it's nothing. Don't make a fuss. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just as he was about to say something, the phone in his trouser pocket vibrated. Commander-in-Chief Xia had no choice but to stop talking and take out his phone. It was a call filled with zeros. At first glance, it was obvious that it was a fake number. He glanced at it and winked at Xia Jinyuan. He said to Old Master Xia, "I'm going out to take this call." Then he quickly left the room. After the door closed, Xia Jinyuan frowned thoughtfully. He knew that Old Master Xia wouldn't let a murderer off the hook. Once he found out who the murderer was, he would definitely bring the murderer to justice. So why was Old Master Xia so slow when dealing with Ms. Xiao? Could it be that there was another reason? Just as he thought about it, Master Xia's deep voice sounded. "Sixth brother, why do I feel like your father is still hiding something from us? Quick, go and listen to what he said." Xia Jinyuan didn't move. If he really has other plans, he wouldn't have told us just now. Even if I heard what he said, I wouldn't be able to guess everything. Besides, do you think I'll be able to hear anything in front of him? He's much better than I am. I'm afraid that I'll be discovered as soon as I show my face. Chapter 56-59. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-59. Urban Romance, Chapter 56-59. Betrayal. Hot tea was simple, and so was Peanut. She tore open the packaging she bought from the supermarket and scooped the peanuts into a bowl. After getting into the pit, the father and son sat down cross-legged. Commander-in-Chief Xia took a sip of tea and ate a peanut. Back home, no matter how impressive his military might was and how high his status was, he would still be an ordinary person. "I'm afraid she has something to do with Uncle Chen's death." As soon as she finished speaking, Xia Jinyuan, who was sipping hot tea with his head lowered, suddenly looked up. His eyes were as sharp as arrows. "Uncle Chen's death can't be unrelated to her? What did you find? What did you confirm?" When he finished speaking, there was already a very strong killing intent. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't find his reaction strange at all. Her husband's family isn't an ordinary family overseas. They have deep connections with some underground markets. Back then, when your mother left with this person, I suspect that it wasn't entirely Madame Li's arrangement. It's very likely that the other party had targeted your mother in advance and took the opportunity to make a move. Xia Jinyuan didn't really want to hear about the past again, but he knew that old man Xia wouldn't bring up the past for no reason. There must be something important to bring it up. Suppressing the murderous intent in his heart, Xia Jinyuan's face darkened. "Are you saying that the other party did not truly love Ms. Xiao back then? Instead, you want to steal secrets through Ms. Xiao?" Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. / more than 20 years ago, it was the time when spies were the most prevalent. Many spies set their sights on the wives of soldiers and did everything they could to steal secret. What was old man Xia doing back then? I only have a suspicion, but I don't have enough evidence. It's mainly because your mother left with someone else. I only met her once when I came back, and it was only to settle the divorce procedures. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't want to talk about the past, but he felt that there was some connection between the two of them. Leaving aside the past, what have you found that makes you think she's related to Uncle Chen's death? We found out that she is in contact with some foreign organizations and that she has many old photos in her hands. Among them, there is an old black and white photo of your Uncle Chen lying in the trenches. Upon seeing these old photos, Commander-in-Chief Xia immediately verified the identities of all the people in the old photos. Among them, other than Uncle Chen's identity, Commander-in-Chief Xia had been investigating the rest. Xia Jinyuan frowned. What about Li Chuhai? Didn't Yi Ying and Sun Dongqing also leak information about Uncle Chen? Shouldn't Li Chuhai be the most suspicious one? What if Li Chuhai and your mother already knew each other? Commander-in-Chief Xia dropped another bombshell. Perhaps it was because Xia Jinyuan had already suffered a huge blow, but this time, he did not have much of an expression. It was not impossible for them to know each other. Next, Ms. Xiao will definitely find a way to leave the country. As long as she leaves, someone will be watching her. It's good that you know what you're doing. If necessary, I will send you out to resolve this matter. Also, hide it from Xiao Yi for the time being. It won't be too late to tell Xiao Yi after you've confirmed everything. Commander-in-Chief Xia instructed carefully. Xia Jinyuan nodded with a cold look in his eyes. He was still thinking in his heart, does she know about the relationship between Yi Qian and Uncle Chen? Did she find out about Uncle Chen through the photos? Or did she find Uncle Chen through Yi Qian? It was very important. If she found Uncle Chen through Yi Qian, then… Xia Jinyuan's heart trembled uncontrollably. Then, his little fox would definitely think that he had indirectly caused Uncle Chen's death. There are two possibilities. First, she doesn't know Xiao Yi, but after she returned to the country, she secretly found out that Xiao Yi was with Uncle Chen. So, she sent a text message to Xiao Yi to Beijing and waited for an opportunity to kill her. Chapter 5660. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5660. Urban romance. Hot tea was simple, and so was Peanut. She tore open the packaging she bought from the supermarket and scooped the peanuts into a bowl. After getting into the pit, the father and son sat down cross-legged. Commander-in-Chief Xia took a sip of tea and ate a peanut. After returning home, no matter how impressive his military might was and how high his status was, he would still be an ordinary person. I'm afraid she has something to do with Uncle Chen's death. As soon as she finished speaking, Xia Jinyuan, who was sipping hot tea with his head lowered, suddenly looked up. His eyes were as sharp as arrows. Uncle Chen's death can't be unrelated to her? What did you find? What did he confirm? When he finished speaking, there was already a very strong killing intent. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't find his reaction strange at all. Her husband's family isn't an ordinary family overseas. They have deep connections with some underground markets. Back then, when your mother left with this person, I suspect that it wasn't entirely Madame Li's arrangement. It's very likely that the other party had targeted your mother in advance and took the opportunity to make a move. Xia Jinyuan didn't really want to hear about the past again, but he knew that old man Xia wouldn't bring up the past for no reason. There must be something important to bring it up. Suppressing the murderous intent in his heart, Xia Jinyuan's face darkened. Are you saying that the other party didn't truly love Ms. Xiao back then? Instead, you want to steal secrets through Ms. Xiao? Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. / more than 20 years ago, it was the time when spies were the most prevalent. Many spies set their sights on the wives of soldiers and did everything they could to steal secret. What was old man Xia doing back then? I only have a suspicion, but I don't have enough evidence. It's mainly because your mother left with someone else. I only met her once when I came back, and it was only to settle the divorce procedures. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't want to talk about the past, but he felt that there was some connection between the two of them. Leaving aside the past, what have you found that makes you think she's related to Uncle Chen's death? We found out that she is in contact with some foreign organizations and that she has many old photos in her hands. Among them, there is an old black and white photo of your Uncle Chen lying in the trenches. Upon seeing these old photos, Commander-in-Chief Xia immediately verified the identities of all the people in the old photos. Among them, other than Uncle Chen's identity, Commander-in-Chief Xia had been investigating the rest. Xia Jinyuan frowned. What about Li Chuhai? Didn't Yi Ying and Sun Dongqing also leak information about Uncle Chen? Shouldn't Li Chuhai be the most suspicious one? What if Li Chuhai and your mother already knew each other? Commander-in-Chief Xia dropped another bombshell. Perhaps it was because Xia Jinyuan had already suffered a huge blow, but this time, he did not have much of an expression. It was not impossible for them to know each other. Next, Ms. Xiao will definitely find a way to leave the country. As long as she leaves, someone will be watching her. It's good that you know what you're doing. If necessary, I will send you out to resolve this matter. Also, hide it from Xiao Yi for the time being. It won't be too late to tell Xiao Yi after you've confirmed everything. Commander-in-Chief Xia instructed carefully. Xia Jinyuan nodded with a cold look in his eyes. He was still thinking in his heart, does she know about the relationship between Yi Qian and Uncle Chen? Did she find out about Uncle Chen through the photos? Or did she find Uncle Chen through Yi Qian? It was very important. If she found Uncle Chen through Yi Qian, then… Xia Jinyuan's heart trembled uncontrollably. Then, his little fox would definitely think that he had indirectly caused Uncle Chen's death. There are two possibilities. First, she doesn't know Xiao Yi, but after she returned to the country, she secretly found out that Xiao Yi was with Uncle Chen. So, she sent a text message to Xiao Yi to Beijing and waited for an opportunity to kill her. Chapter 56-61. The Great Red Star lives up to your expectations. CMS please note. Take care of your eyes after reading for a long time. Argot equals _blank 11311/modules/article/home page of books. Bookmark recommend this book. Commander-in-Chief Xia paused for a moment before speaking of the second possibility. The second possibility is that she knows Xiao Yi. Because of your relationship with Xiao Yi, she went to investigate. Unexpectedly, she found Uncle Chen, sent him a text message, and waited for an opportunity to kill him. Both possibilities exist. The first possibility is more likely. Two possibilities. Xia Jinyuan said in a low voice. She met Yi Qian last time, and this was the first time she met Yi Qian. Previously, she probably found out about Yi Qian through Madame Li, so the second possibility is not very likely. The first possibility is more likely. Commander-in-Chief Xia nodded. We'll see what she does next. She might not give up on you, but she has no choice but to do so for now. Alright, it's getting late. You have to get up early tomorrow and return to the army. Rest well. I'll inform you of her situation via text message. Remember, hide it from Xiao Yi for now. Only tell Xiao Yi after the truth is confirmed. Xia Jinyuan's gaze became sharper at this moment. In that case, Madame Xiao has a lot to do with Uncle Chen's death. We just have to wait for the most crucial evidence to come out, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have reminded me again and again not to tell Yi Qian. Because you're afraid that Yi Qian will find out that Uncle Chen's death is related to Madame Xiao. Please note, take care of your eyes after reading for a long time. Because of the estrangement in her heart, she broke off the marriage and didn't want to marry into family Xia, right? Commander-in-Chief Xia. His son was not smart, so he had a headache. His son was too smart, so he had a headache too. Commander-in-Chief Xia waved his hand and chased him away. I didn't say anything. It's fine as long as you know what you're doing. What he was worried about was just as Xia Jinyuan had said. I'll tell her that she's been looking for Uncle Chen's murderer all this time. In order to take revenge, she's been practicing her skills. She only wants to one day kill the murderer. If it's really related to Madame Xiao, I'll support her no matter what she does. Xia Jinyuan didn't want to hide it from Yi Jian. If he really hid such a big thing from Yi Jian would be estranged from him. She might even regret it out of anger. Uncle Chen was one of Xiao Ye's closest family members. He was her bottom line. Even someone as close as Xia Jinyuan could not touch him. Commander-in-Chief Xia didn't say anything else. He just sent Xia Jinyuan to rest. He told Xia Jinyuan about this in advance, because he wanted to give Xia Jinyuan a heads up. Once he got hold of the key evidence, he couldn't hide it from Yi Qian. Back then, He had promised Yi Qian that he would tell her as long as there was any news. When that day came, he would take it one step at a time. The worst-case scenario of breaking off the marriage agreement might not happen. Yi Qian was already sitting in a jeep heading to the border town. In about 2 hours, he would arrive at the border town and meet with the border police. At the border town's checkpoint, a middle-aged man was pacing back and forth in the office. After walking for a while, he sat back down in his chair. He felt a chill in his heart, stood up, and continued pacing back and forth. This repeated several times. A drug enforcement officer, who was holding a large brimmed hat and covering his face, moved his body slightly, and the hat covering his face fell. Sleeping, he reacted quickly and caught the hat. He opened his eyes, which were a little sleepy. As he was sleeping, his eyes were illuminated by the glaring incandescent light in the office. He couldn't help but raise his hand to shield his eyes. Hearing footsteps, the officer who was sleeping soundly groaned. He struggled to sit up straight and leaned his back against the sofa. He rubbed his eyes a few times and said with a smile, "You can't calm down." Chapter 56-62. Listen to my advice. Before she arrives, you should have a good rest. Don't worry and have a good rest. I've already said that we've worked with Xiao Yi before. She's a 1-in-a-million strong character. Even if she's half dead, she'll still come back alive. Why don't you believe me? The case 2 years ago gave us a headache for half a year. Look, she came and solved our problem. The policeman who spoke was none other than Captain Deng, whom Yi Qian had met 2 years ago. Back then, in order to get close to Lena, Captain Deng had carefully selected people from the public security system. Even the anniversary of the special forces around him had passed. In the end, Captain Deng's requirements were not met. In the end, Yi Qian came and met Captain Deng's requirements. This time, criminals from neighboring countries sneaked into our country. Due to the difficult personnel, Captain Deng recommended Yi Qian. That was why Yi Qian went to the border again. However, it was not the border near the Golden Triangle, but another small border city. Captain Deng was 100% confident in Yi Qian. The leader of the armed police force was not familiar with Yi Qian, so he was worried. He was afraid that the person sent by the higher-ups would meet with an accident in their place. It would be difficult for him to explain. You, Captain Deng said. Listen to my advice. Before she arrives, you should have a good rest. Don't worry and have a good rest. I've already said that we've worked with Xiao Yi before. She's a 1-in-a-million strong character. Even if she's half dead, she'll still come back alive. Why don't you believe me? The case 2 years ago gave us a headache for half a year. Look, she came and solved our problem. The policeman who spoke was none other than Captain Deng, whom Yi Qian had met 2 years ago. In order to get close to Lena, Captain Deng had carefully selected people from the public security system. Even the anniversary of the special forces around him had passed. In the end, Captain Deng's requirements were not met. In the end, Yi Qian came and met Captain Deng's requirements. This time, criminals from neighboring countries sneaked into our country. Due to the difficult personnel, Captain Deng recommended Yi Qian. That was why Yi Qian went to the border again. However, it was not the border near the Golden Triangle, but another small border city. When it came to Yi Qian, Captain Deng was 100% assured. The leader of the armed police force was not familiar with Yi Qian, so he was worried. He was afraid that the people sent by the higher-ups would get into trouble with them, and it would be difficult for him to explain himself. You, he said. Listen to me, before she arrives, you'd better have a good rest. Don't worry. Have a good rest. Have a good rest. I've already said that we've worked with Xiao Yi before. She's a 1-in-a-million powerful character. Even if she's half dead, she'll still come back alive. Why don't you believe me? The case 2 years ago gave us a headache for more than half a year. It was only because of her that our problem was solved. The policeman who spoke was none other than Captain Deng, whom Yi Qian had met 2 years ago. Back then, in order to get close to Lena, Captain Deng had carefully selected people from the public security system. Even the anniversary of the special forces around him had passed, but in the end, they still did not meet Captain Deng's requirements. In the end, Yi Qian came and met Captain Deng's requirements. This time, criminals from neighboring countries sneaked into our country. Due to the difficult personnel, Captain Deng recommended Yi Qian. That was why Yi Qian went to the border again. However, it was not the border near the Golden Triangle, but another small border city. Captain Deng was 100% assured of Yi Qian. The leader of the armed police force was not familiar with Yi Qian, so he was worried. He was afraid that the people sent by the higher-ups would get into trouble with them, and it would be difficult for him to explain. Chapter 56-63. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-63. Unforgettable Urban Romance. Chapter 56-63. Unforgettable. At around 2 o'clock in the morning, a military jeep drove towards the Border Defense Building. It stopped, and the sentry verified the identity and let the vehicle pass. Inside the building, the lights in a dark office lit up. After getting out of the car, Yi Qian raised his head and looked at the old and renovated Border Defense Building. His eyes narrowed slightly. The night was dark, and the main structure of the Border Defense Building was hidden in the darkness. Even so, Yi Qian felt a sense of familiarity when he first saw it. She seemed to have seen this building somewhere before. She was sure that she had never been to the Border Defense Building before and after her rebirth, so she shouldn't have a sense of familiarity. However, she felt that she had seen it before. She should have seen it somewhere. Could it be that she had seen a building similar to the Border Defense Building in some city? Yi Qian didn't think too much about it. She should focus on what she needed to do next. In the car, she had a general understanding of the situation. The Jing detachment at the border would tell her the details. She also had a lot of questions. Capturing the Burmese fugitives was something that the border police could easily handle. Why would they report it to the higher-ups and ask for backup? Just because she knew one of the female bandits? Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Who knew that she knew this female bandit? With questions in mind, Yi Qian entered the Border Defense Building. In the office on the 5th floor of the Border Defense Building, Zheng Weiwei washed his face and put on his military uniform. He walked out of the office with Captain Deng of the Narcotics Division to welcome Yi Qian. There were 7 floors in total, and there was no elevator installed. All the floors were stairs. In the dead of the night, the sound of footsteps gradually came from the 1st floor. Gradually, the footsteps became clearer and clearer. Captain Deng held the handrail with one hand and looked down from the crack of the stairs. He smiled and said, "We're on the 3rd floor. When you see it later, you'll immediately understand the true meaning of a sentence." "Stop bullshitting me." Zheng Weiwei tugged at the hem of his clothes. The military belt around his waist was pulled to his chest and back, as if it had been ironed. Zheng Weiwei was looking forward to it, but he was also very worried. The sound of footsteps coming up the stairs was getting closer and closer. Soon, they reached the 4th floor. Step by step, they were unhurried and calm. For some reason, Zheng Weiwei suddenly felt a sense of relief. "Go downstairs." Zheng Weiwei muttered one word in a low voice. He lifted his feet and went downstairs to welcome Yi Qian, instead of sitting at the top of the stairs on the 5th floor to wait for him. The lights in the stairwell were all 100-watt incandescent bulbs, so the entire stairwell was as bright as day. When Yi Qian heard footsteps coming down the stairs, he slowed down and looked up the stairs. Zheng Wei came down from above to greet her warmly. "You must be Xiaoyi. Thank you for your hard work. You've come such a long way." Before he could finish saying "come here," Zheng Weiwei's voice and smile stopped, replaced by an extremely shocked expression. Captain Deng, who came down after him, laughed heartily. Xiao Yi, long time no see. Do you still remember who I am? Captain Deng, who had a thin face and sharp eyes, stood side by side with the shocked Jing Weiwei on the stairs. He smiled happily at Yi Qian. You probably haven't forgotten who I am, right? Yi Qian's gaze moved from Zheng Weiwei's face to Captain Deng's face. He suppressed the shock on Zheng Weiwei's face when he saw him and smiled warmly. Long time no see, Captain Deng. Captain Deng of the Narcotics Division and the black and white photo wall in the Narcotics Division building. She might forget many people and many things in her life, but she would never forget Captain Deng and the black and white photo wall. Chapter 56-64. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-64. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Surprise. Urban Romance. Chapter 56-64. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Bewildered Yi Qian's recognition made Captain Deng very happy. Ha ha ha, you didn't forget. You still remember me. It must have been hard on you. Captain Deng, who was speaking, also noticed that something was amiss with the Zheng detachment. He immediately took over the role of host and entertained Yi Qian first. It's already so late, yet you're still in a hurry. The situation is really a little tricky, and we need you to help us. Come. Let's go upstairs and talk in the office. This is Detachment Zheng. Look at him. I just told him to be mentally prepared, but he turned a deaf ear to my words. Why is he standing there in a daze? After patting Detachment Zheng on the shoulder, Captain Deng was also very puzzled. Old Zheng's expression was very strange. It was not because he was shocked to see Yi Qian, but because he had discovered something that shocked him. Go upstairs, old Zheng. You're still in shock. Xiao Yi was indeed beautiful, but what was even more beautiful was not her appearance, but her ability. That's called breathtaking. It's unforgettable after you see it. Anyone who saw Yi Qian for the first time, no matter who it was, would only have one word to describe their first impression of him: beautiful. There were many beautiful girls, but Yi Qian's beauty was not just limited to her physical beauty. She had a spiritual aura that could make people's eyes linger on her. However, Zheng Weiwei's first impression of Yi Qian was not because of Yi Qian's beauty. Captain Deng patted the shoulder to remind Zheng Weiwei to pull back from the shock. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Thinking, he readjusted his expression and a warm smile appeared on his face. This time, there was less politeness in his smile, and there was a trace of imperceptible intimacy. Welcome, Xiao Yi. Welcome to Border City to guide our work. Guide work. Yi Qian was a little embarrassed. He maintained a smile and replied, I don't dare to guide you. I still need Team Zheng to guide me. Zheng Weiwei seemed to sense Yi Qian's awkwardness and immediately laughed out loud. He's shy and isn't used to formalities. Advice and guidance are mutual matters. Next, we need to give advice and guidance together. Her words resolved Yi Qian's awkwardness. Zheng Weiwei laughed and said, I finally understand what Captain Deng wanted to tell me. You can't judge a book by its cover. Captain Deng, I'm right. They were already standing on the 5th floor when the two of them shook hands for the first time. Captain Deng also shook hands with Yi Qian and said with a smile, That's right. You can't judge a book by its cover. I understand this, saying the most from Xiao Yi. The two border police officers who received Yi Qian stood to the side quietly and listened to the leader's talk. They did not interrupt. The three of them chatted and laughed as they entered the office. Zheng Weiwei personally poured a cup of hot water for Yi Qian. Come, have a drink first. We'll be chatting for a while. Yi Qian stood up and accepted the cup politely. He then realized that Zheng Weiwei was secretly sizing him up with a probing gaze. Yi Qian lowered his head and drank the water. He became more and more suspicious. Zheng Weiwei was quite strange. He did not doubt her ability because of her young age. It was as if he knew her before. It was also as if he was very surprised and was secretly looking for something. Captain Deng also realized that old Zheng was very strange when he saw Yi Qian. Yes. Captain Deng reminded him softly, indicating for Zheng Weiwei to behave normally. Xiao Yi must have noticed something was wrong. Zheng Weiwei gave Captain Deng a look to reassure him that he knew what was going on. He lowered his head and drank a mouthful of strong tea. He put down his cup and cleared his throat. He looked serious. Xiao Yi, before we talk about business, I have a private matter to ask. If I don't ask, I won't be able to talk about business. 4M. Years ago, when he was investigating the cause of Hongmei's death, he had also made an appointment to talk to him. He had also learned from Kai that Hongmei had a daughter who had been left behind. Kai had said that the daughter's facial features were very similar to Hongmei's. Only her eyebrows and eyes were slightly different. She probably resembled her father. At that time, when he heard Kai's words, he didn't believe it. Later, when his superiors asked him to talk about Hongmei's death, he suddenly realized that there was more to Hongmei's death. And it was very likely that Hongmei's daughter had dug up this information. Since then, he really wanted to see Hongmei's daughter. However, Kai had actually said that he had lost contact with her and didn't know where she had gone. He only knew that Hongmei's daughter had taken the same path as them and became a soldier. When he found out that they had lost contact, he felt that it was a pity for a long time. He thought that he would never be able to see Hongmei's daughter in this lifetime. He had never thought that one day, he would see a young female soldier who looked almost the same as Hongmei. When he saw Yi Qian, Zheng Weiwei was so shocked that he almost asked if Yi Qian was Hongmei's daughter. Fortunately, he managed to control himself in time and didn't ask. However, he was too shocked and couldn't control the expression on his face. Hearing this, Zheng Weiwei repeatedly said, "Okay, okay, okay." His voice was already choked with sobs. 4M. Chapter 56-66. Ending a regret. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Captain Deng could understand Zheng Weiwei. The sacrifice of a comrade was the lifelong pain of all comrades in arms. They would not forget it even if they retired. A daughter inherits her mother's work. Xiao Yi, your mother must be proud of you. Captain Deng sighed. Many years later, her daughter inherited her mother's work and became an indomitable soldier. She even reunited with her mother's comrade. It was like reincarnation, reuniting the friendship of the past. Zheng Weiwei nodded. There was sadness and relief in her smile. That's great, that's great. You've grown up and inherited your mother's favorite career. You're wearing your mother's favorite military uniform. She must be very, very happy. You know Lao Kai from Tongqing, right? I know you. It was him who contacted me. Later, he said that he lost contact with you. I regretted it for a long time. I thought that I would never see Hongmei's daughter in my life. I didn't expect. Zheng Weiwei's eyes were red as he spoke. Excitement, relief, sadness, happiness, everything. Yi Qian did not expect to meet her mother's former comrade here. You're talking about Uncle Kai, right? I know him. Uncle Kai looked for me back then and gave me a diary. That diary became the only memory my mother left for me. Lao Kai, he was more meticulous than us. Your mother saved him back then. He always wanted to repay her kindness, but he didn't expect. Zheng Weiwei looked up and forced back the tears that were about to rush out. He didn't expect that a mission would separate us from your mother. We were too young and ignorant back then. We didn't know the inside story at all. Thanks to the meticulous Lao Kai, we found out the truth. Zheng Weiwei's tone was cold. Fortunately, the truth came out and the murderer didn't get away with it. If we were as meticulous as Lao Kai back then, the murderer wouldn't have been free for so many years. The identity of the murderer was still in the system. Former comrades such as Jing Weiwei and Chief Kai had more or less heard about it. They couldn't help, so they could only try their best to recall the past and tell the higher-ups so that they could find more clues. The murderer had been killed many years ago. Yi Qian's emotions were no longer as agitated as before. She even comforted Zheng Weiwei. In the end, the murderer did not manage to escape punishment. This was the best ending for him. Zheng Weiwei took the water from Yi Qian and drank a few mouthfuls to calm himself down. He then asked Yi Qian cautiously, "Xiao Yi, do you want to go to the place where your mother sacrificed herself? It's in the primeval forest on our side. It's a little far away. After your mission is over, I'll take you there, okay?" She had never thought that she would be able to go to the place where her mother had sacrificed herself. Hearing this, Yi Qian was also a little excited. She nodded vigorously and answered, "Okay. Thank you, Zheng Detachment. After our matter is settled, please take me there." "I'll definitely take you there." Zheng Weiwei nodded. Every year, on the day of Hongmei's sacrifice, no matter how busy he was, he would take time out to pay his respects. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 years had passed. Hongmei was approaching, but her daughter had arrived. Yi Qian remembered it and looked forward to this day coming soon. Zheng Weiwei, who was in a good mood after settling his personal matters, smiled. "You call Lao Kai Uncle Kai, but you call me Zheng Weiwei. That's a little inappropriate. We're both your mother's comrades. You can't favor one and discriminate against the other." Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine to find this website. Thank you. Chapter 5666. Panda Literature Settling a Regret. Chapter 5667. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5667. Betrayal Goodbye Again, Urban Romance. Chapter 5667. Betrayal Farewell Again. She was the daughter of a comrade. Even if they did not have a deep conversation, there was already a sense of closeness in her words and demeanor. Unknowingly, she had already treated the daughter of a comrade as her own junior. There was affection in her closeness, which made the entire atmosphere particularly relaxed and warm. Captain Deng sighed again and again. Yi Qian's fate was really deep. His unintentional suggestion was taken seriously by the political commissar of the armed police force in the border town. Because of the special nature of the case, after careful consideration, the political commissar finally agreed to his suggestion and immediately reported it to the higher-ups. From the military region to the capital, it took less than half a day before Yi Qian received the latest mission. However, Captain Deng and Detachment Zheng did not know that Yi Qian had rushed over from his own engagement party and left his fiancée behind to go to the border town alone. After settling his personal matters and confirming that Yi Qian was his comrade's daughter, Zheng Weiwei's expression turned solemn and he changed the topic to the main topic. In the middle of the night, the border defense building was like a mythical beast in the ancient town, exuding an awe-inspiring aura that made criminals fear. In the thick night, the stars were faint, the moon was like a crescent, and the shadows of the trees were heavy. When the wind came slowly, the fine leaves rustled and swayed, adding a bit of coldness to the thick night. Far away in a certain high-end residential area in Beijing, V8 had already woken up. In another hour, he would have to leave his girlfriend's house and report back to the army. This was the house of Mrs. Qin and Ambassador Qin Dingkong. It was a duplex, and the master bedroom was here. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Downstairs, the guest rooms were all downstairs. V8 got out of bed quietly, so quietly that even the nanny didn't notice. He wanted to leave quietly so that his girlfriend, Qin Ning, would not be sad. Their relationship had just been established, but he had to leave before he could properly accompany his girlfriend. As her boyfriend, he felt very guilty towards his girlfriend. When it came to parting, it was better to leave quietly. V8, who had gotten out of bed, was sitting in front of the desk in the guest room. He was writing a farewell letter to Qin. Leaving quietly did not mean leaving without saying goodbye. The phone on the corner of the desk vibrated. V8 stopped writing and picked up the phone to check the message. It was a message from Q King, Xia Jinyuan. He didn't attend the engagement ceremony yesterday. Q King had invited him, but he had to accompany his girlfriend to visit the Qin family's friends and relatives. He could only forget about his friends and didn't attend the team leader's engagement ceremony. What happened next was beyond his expectations, but it was still within reason. At the engagement party, the one who received the emergency mission was not Q King, but Qin Niao. The roles were reversed. It was not surprising, but it was not surprising. After all, both of them were special forces. The car will arrive in 10 minutes. Xia Jinyuan sent a message to V8. He didn't leave without saying goodbye. The driver of the old mansion sent Xia Jinyuan to the airport. V8 replied with a message. Arrive on time. After replying, there was no response. Xia Jinyuan had read the message, but he didn't reply. At the end of the farewell letter filled with guilt, V8 sighed softly, picked up the pen again, and continued. We met in a hurry and we parted in a hurry. I was most afraid that you would be wronged, and I was most afraid that you would be sad and cry. I only left a letter to say goodbye. I only hope that you will not miss me when you see the letter. Boyfriend, Su Linshu. V8 did not flip the desk. He wrote the letter to the last blank page of the desk calendar on the desk, put the pen back into the pen holder, and hung the desk calendar in the middle of the desk. When Qining realized that he did not come out in the morning, she would definitely go into the room to check. Then, she would see his letter. He folded the blanket into a square piece of tofu out of habit. V8 carried the simple luggage that he had brought to Beijing with Xia Jinyuan that day, and opened the door of the guest room. Chapter 56-68. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-68. Betrayal Heartbeat Urban Romance. Chapter 56-68. Betrayal Heartbeat. The door opened, and the living room that should have been dark was brightly lit. There were soft voices coming from his girlfriend's mother and her father. The two elders were talking to their girlfriend, Qining. Their voices were too soft for him to hear clearly, but he knew that his girlfriend's family had woken up in the middle of the night because of him. His guilt reached its peak at this moment. V8 tightened his grip on his luggage, took a few deep breaths, and strode out of the room. He had originally planned to sleep in a hotel, but his uncle, Ambassador Qin Dingkong, had strongly objected to it. Even his aunt had objected to it and insisted that he stay at home. She had said that if he did not stay at home, it would mean that he was looking down on the Qin family. Looking down on the Qin family? Being put on a high hat, he, the guy who had boldly come to the door, was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly sought help from Q King, who was also in the capital. Q King said that since he was sincere in being together with Qining, with marriage as the goal and not to be a hooligan, moving into the Qin family was a good opportunity to express his sincerity. Following Xia Jinyuan's arrangement, V8 Yang Shulin stayed at his girlfriend's house for the entire holiday and expressed his sincerity from morning till night. For example, she made breakfast in the morning, lunch in the afternoon, and dinner in the evening. When her culinary skills were revealed, the auntie and uncle's first words were, "They are no longer worried that Qining will starve to death in the future." Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Here we go. Even Qin Xiu, who seemed gentle but was actually distant, nodded in agreement. Conquering his girlfriend's family with his culinary skills and gaining the approval of the auntie who had originally opposed his cooking, this was really unexpected. Later, he found out that his girlfriend's family was not good at cooking. His girlfriend had never done any household chores, and his girlfriend's mother was not good at cooking either. Uncle and Qin Xiu lived a simple life. They had 3 meals a day at work. They were not as familiar with the kitchen knives as he, who had only been here for a few days. The sound of footsteps woke up the family, who were whispering in the living room. Qin ran over in her slippers like a swallow. Seeing the handsome man, Qin Ying's heart ached. V8 saw his girlfriend's sad expression and said softly, "I'm sorry, Ah-ing. I'm sorry that I can't always be with you. I'm sorry that I can't always be by your side. I'm sorry that I can't always belong to her." Qin shook her head and secretly took a deep breath. She revealed a bright smile. "What's there to be sorry about? It's my honor that my country has become my rival in love." Her mentality was very good, and it was very in line with Qin Ying's personality. She was originally a capable, agile, and straightforward person. She was both chic and gentle, which moved V8 the most. How could Qin Ying's heart not be moved by such a woman who could be as carefree as the wind and tender as well? What made V8 even more dumbfounded was that his girlfriend also chose to leave home in the middle of the night. "Oh, and I didn't get up on purpose to send you to the army. I'm very busy. Hey, look at my plane ticket." Qin flashed her plane ticket. "I'm flying overseas. If you leave, I'll leave too. I don't feel guilty, so what do you have to feel guilty about?" Before V8 could say anything, Mrs. Qin glared at her daughter fiercely. What nonsense was she saying again? Ambassador Qin Dingkong felt that his daughter said it well and agreed. "Ing is right. You both have your own careers to be busy with, so you don't have to feel guilty. You both miss each other in your hearts, understand each other, and look forward to the next time you meet. Don't complain because the other party is busy, don't be negative because the other party is missing, don't be resentful because the other party is not by your side. Understand each other and support each other." It's easy to have differences in certain things. For example, Qin spends a lot of money. No matter how expensive it is, she doesn't care about it. She only cares about her own happiness. If her boyfriend was from the same family, he would have been influenced since he was young and wouldn't think much of it and wouldn't take it seriously. But if the man comes from a family that has suffered since he was a child, or if his family's conditions are passable, but they can't spend money extravagantly, then his concept of spending will definitely be different from Ah Ying's. Auntie's example is the most common one that you can understand. Auntie has seen too many examples. I don't want my spoiled daughter to have to look at her in-laws' faces to decide whether she likes him or not after she gets married. That way, my daughter will be the one suffering. I can't bear to part with her. Until now, Auntie still doesn't think highly of you and Ah-ing. Of course, if you can continue, Auntie won't stop you. Auntie will wish you happiness. However, if one day Ah-ing is wronged by you, Shulin, Auntie will say this first. As long as Ah-ing says that she is wronged, Auntie will definitely separate the two of you. Once wronged, there will be many more. Auntie won't let her beloved daughter be wronged in someone else's house. These were harsh words, but it was also a mother's love for her daughter. Even the strong Qin was touched by these words and her eyes turned red. Chapter 5670. The Red Star Will Live Up to Your Expectations. Chapter 5670. Red Star Farewell, Urban Romance, JQI Chapter 5670. Red Star Farewell. Her mother might not be perfect and was even dictatorial in some areas, restricting her and her brother Qin Xiu, making it hard for them to breathe and making them only want to escape. However, they never felt that their mother was harming them. Everything she did was for the sake of the two siblings. It was just that, sometimes, when she meddled too much, it made them feel rebellious. Ambassador Qin Dingkong understood his wife. Seeing his daughter Qin Ying's red eyes, he sighed. Now you understand your mother's painstaking efforts. She's seen other people's daughters suffer, so she's afraid. That's why she's asking you to do this. But your mother has a strong personality. She's tough, likes to meddle in things, and… Before he could finish, Mrs. Cheen suppressed her anger and pulled him to the side. Shut up. V8 silently looked at the ambassador who was pulled away. No matter how dignified he was on TV, at home he still had to listen to Auntie's orders. Knowing that his girlfriend's mother was waiting for him to answer, V8 answered Mrs. Cheen with the most sincere words. There were no flowery words, only one sentence. I definitely won't give Auntie a chance to taking away. It was really just one sentence, but it made Mrs. Cheen close her eyes and slowly open them again. Okay, Auntie will remember. Uncle and I will send you to the airport. Cheening raised her hand. You guys, please note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes. How could you forget such an important person? Mom, at least give me a chance to say something. Speak. Mrs. Cheen coldly spat out a word. She went out again, she went out again. She didn't even hear her say it before. If she didn't see the plane tickets, she wouldn't have known that her daughter was going to run out again. Facing the majesty of the Empress Dowager, the carefree Cheening smiled and said, As long as he's around, if I suffer any grievances in life, I can endure them. After all, we're husband and wife. We can share joys and sorrows together. Yes, you're right. Ambassador Cheen Dingkong came online again, and his wife, Mrs. Cheen, glared at him again. That was the way it was. Could it be that they could live together if they enjoyed blessings and leave if they didn't enjoy blessings? It didn't make sense. There's only one thing I can't do. If he ever makes me feel wronged emotionally, Mom, I don't even need you to take me away. I'll dust myself off and leave on my own. Cheening was such a straightforward person. She meant what she said and was not just saying it. She looked at her boyfriend and asked with a smile, Do you agree with what I said? In terms of life and relationships, I won't let you suffer. V8 gave a very simple answer and spoke the truest thoughts in his heart. There were no sweet nothings, but it made Cheening smile. V8 thought that he would not give his girlfriend a chance to leave. When Mrs. Cheen saw this, she couldn't help but laugh. She turned around and secretly wiped her tears. It seemed that her daughter's problem had been solved, and only her son's marriage was left. Mrs. Cheen couldn't help but think of Yi Chien again, and her heart ached. She was really blind to have missed such a good daughter-in-law. There were still 4 minutes before Xia Jinyuan's 10-minute appointment. When V8 told him the truth, Ambassador Cheen Dingkong was slightly stunned. So, family Xia, Old Six, and Xiao Yi had both left Beijing? Cheening also knew that Yi Chien had left. When she came out of the elevator, she held Mrs. Cheen's arm and said softly, My Empress Dowager, it's a pity that you don't have much time left. Xiao Yi is so busy. Are you sure you can accept a daughter-in-law who doesn't even return home than Qin Xiu? This was really unacceptable. Chapter 56-71. The Red Star Will Live Up to Your Expectations. Chapter 56-71. Betrayal. Chapter 56-71. Betrayal. Mrs. Cheen was relieved. I can't accept it. It's just that, Sai, I've let your Grandpa Fu down. Cheening smiled and hugged Mrs. Cheen's arm. Grandpa Fu is a magnanimous person. Don't worry. Mrs. Cheen was furious. Was she a villain? Cheening laughed so hard that her head rested on Mrs. Cheen's shoulder. I know you're not a villain. I was just making an analogy. However, Mom, you're quite strange. You can't accept a daughter-in-law who doesn't return home. Why aren't you worried that Shulin's family won't accept me, a daughter-in-law who doesn't return home either? Sai, your double standards are really not good. Thank you. Cheening really didn't mind saying it in front of V8. Mrs. Cheen's heart ached when she heard it. How can it be the same? How can it be the same? I'm a double standard. What can you do to me? I also like you to be well-behaved at home, But will you listen? Before sending her off, Mrs. Chin gave Ing a good education lesson. What double standards do I have? I don't like you running outside either. But what can I do? Didn't you say you want freedom, equality, and respect? I'm giving you freedom, equality, and respect now. What? You're saying that I have double standards? Fine, give me the plane ticket and don't go out today. Then I won't have double standards. Mrs. Chin was the wife of a diplomat. How could she not be eloquent? Please note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. Ing, who quickly stuffed the plane ticket into her pocket, immediately admitted her mistake and begged for mercy. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. All right, you and Dad can rest. Shulin and I can leave by ourselves. What a terrifying lady. Sending her back to her room to rest early was the right thing to do. Then do I have double standards? Mrs. Chin crossed her arms, tears in her eyes. She would be gone for more than half a year. She really wanted to keep her daughter by her side. But she couldn't. Every second that he could stay was a second. How could Ing not know her mother's reluctance? She was also reluctant to leave home, but if she were to show her reluctance, then she really wouldn't be able to successfully board the plane tonight. After admitting his mistake and apologizing, Mrs. Chin finally smiled. Wiping the corners of her eyes, Mrs. Chin said to V8, who was quietly accompanying her, "Sorry for making a fool of herself. That's just how she is. Whatever she said, it was the wind. Whatever she said, it was the wind. She had a lot of ideas. No one could do anything to her. Please bear with me in the future." She was worried that Ing would be bullied, but she was also worried that Ing's personality would make V8 unable to take it. As her mother, Mrs. Chin was worried sick and wished that she could watch over her every day. There was not much time left. Ambassador Qin Dingkong, who had been pushed aside by his wife, walked over and took Mrs. Chin's hand. He smiled at Ing and V8. "Don't let them wait for too long. Let's go. Your mother and I will send them to the elevator." Mrs. Chin wanted to walk him downstairs, but Ambassador Qin Dingkong secretly shook his head, and Mrs. Chin finally gave up. "That's fine too." Ing smiled and nodded as they walked to the elevator. It was only a few steps. Her carefree attitude gave Mrs. Chin a headache again. What kind of daughter did she raise? Her personality was even wilder than a man's. She carried a camera all day and carried an unknown amount of equipment. She took photos here and there, and she didn't know what was interesting about it. There were plenty of good jobs available, but she had to go outside to be exposed to the wind and sun. She even had to go to a war-torn country. She was worried at home and didn't sleep well. If she said too much, she would say that she was meddling too much. If she didn't care, her son and daughter might even go to heaven. Chapter 56-72. 10,000 Miles of Red Star did not disappoint. Chapter 56-72. Love Ambassador Qin Dingkong often ran outside, so he was very used to his children leaving. Of course, he was worried, but it was not as deep as Mrs. Chin's. His children had grown up and their wings had hardened. Of course, they would leave their nest and soar to higher and wider places. They would travel more when they were young so that they would not have any regrets when they were old. When the elevator door slowly closed, Mrs. Chin, who had been restraining herself, finally could not help but cry. Okay, you're already so old and you're still crying. It's not the first time we're sending Ing away. Why are you always so worried? She's already in her 30s, and she's already an adult. Why are we worrying so much? If we worry too much, we'll make her worry instead. Ambassador Qin Dingkong pulled Mrs. Chin home. Since he was not sleepy, he decided to have a good chat with his wife. In the elevator, V8 comforted his girlfriend in a low voice. "Come back to accompany Auntie after you're done. Auntie can't bear for you to leave." "Sigh, I know. That's why sometimes I'd rather my mother quarrel with me before I leave with my luggage. That way, my mother won't miss me so much when she's angry. Qi Ning waited against the elevator wall and sighed softly. I saw that my mother had a lot of white hair just now. I think I should still, please take note of the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. You should reduce the time you go out and spend more time with her. Yes, you should spend more time with Auntie. Otherwise, it'll be so lonely at home alone. V8 was very much in favor of spending more time with his parents. Just like him, he also wanted to spend time with them, but his parents were stubborn and even Major General Yang had a headache. Qi Ning also felt that she should spend more time with her parents, but she could not say that she was alone. She narrowed her eyes and asked V8, "What about you? When do you plan to bring me to see your parents? Are you on leave this year? If you're on leave, bring me there." My parents? V8 smiled bitterly. I don't know if my parents have forgiven me yet. After I joined the army, I haven't returned once. I've written many letters, but I've never received a reply from them. I keep in touch with my cousin. He said that my parents didn't even read my letter. They just tore it up and threw it into the trash can. Although they are both teachers, their tempers are notoriously stubborn. V8 had explained in front of the Qin family's elders that his relationship with the family was average. As for how average it was, they did not ask in detail at that time, and Qi Ning did not ask in detail either. Only now did she know how average it was. After thinking for a while, she raised her hand and flipped her short hair handsomely. She revealed a confident smile and said, "Don't worry. You can leave your leave this year, and I'll go back with you. I don't believe that the old couple won't accept my daughter-in-law." She was afraid that her uncle and eldest uncle would also send people to his house to ask around. Qi Ning did not say this out loud, afraid that V8 would feel uncomfortable. Xia Jinyuan had already arrived at the entrance of the neighborhood. At 2:30 in the morning, there were only a few scattered lights in the neighborhood. It was a high-end bungalow neighborhood, and the location was good. When he got out of the car, it was so quiet that Xia Jinyuan could hear his own breathing. He took out his phone and was about to dial V8's number when his phone rang. V8 had called him himself. About 3 minutes later, Xia Jinyuan saw the two of them. When he saw Qi Ning, Xia Jinyuan swallowed the words he wanted to say. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "You're bringing your family out so soon? Did you bring your family to the army?" Qi Ning asked with a smile. She did not feel any reverence for Xia Jinyuan. "Yes, I'll go with you immediately." Chapter 56-73 11311/modules/article/ Please note, please rest your eyes if you read for a long time. 00 Recommended reading. /A home page of the book vault, bookmark recommend this book, Chapter 56-73. Book vault. Xia Jinyuan smiled. No, the place is confidential. It's not open to family members for the time being. Qi Ning smiled and did not say anything. She did not say anything, but Xia Jinyuan understood what she meant. He said to V8, "Brother, sister-in-law is not simple. Take care of yourself in the future. You can't bring family members, yet you still ask? Bullsh *t. This was Qi Ning's hidden answer under her smile. Xia Jinyuan understood immediately. V8 opened the car door and let Qi Ning get in first. He smiled happily. "It's pretty good. I like it very much and I'm very relieved." His girlfriend was independent and could take good care of herself. He would be much more relieved in the army. They could not date a girlfriend who was too clingy and needed too much care. No matter how much they loved her, they would not take the initiative to take a step forward because they could not afford to give her what she wanted. Xia Jinyuan thought very highly of Qi Ning and V8. Seeing that Qi Ning was happy all the way, Xia Jinyuan sent a message to G3. G3's Inrong was on duty in the army this year. There were not many people in the army now. The rest had all gone to the snow-covered mountains for winter training and would not return until the 15th of the first lunar month. Xia Jinyuan did not receive a reply when he sent the message. He did not expect to receive a reply immediately. After sending the message, he put his phone in his pocket. After about 10 minutes, the quiet phone suddenly vibrated. Xia Jinyuan thought that G3 had replied to him. But it was not. Please note, please rest your eyes if you read for a long time. 00 recommended reading. When he saw the message, the corners of his lips curled up. It was a message from Yi Qian. It was a message from his lover. Captain Xia, I got a huge surprise tonight. I came to the place my mother used to be and stood where my mother used to stand. I even saw my mother's comrades. Even through the screen and thousands of miles away, Xia Jinyuan could feel Yi Qian's happiness. She was genuinely happy. I'm happy for you. If you have the chance, please take me there, he answered her, happy that she had found the place where her mother had lived. Yi Qian thought she wouldn't get a reply. When she received the message, she was a little surprised, but then she pursed her lips and smiled. She was surprised by his message. Then, was Captain Xia also surprised by her message? There was a deep smile in her clear eyes. Yes, I will definitely bring you here. After I finish my mission, Uncle Zheng will take me to the place where my mother sacrificed herself to pay her respects. I never thought that one day I would go to the place where my mother fell. This trip, I have no regrets. This time, Xia Jinyuan's heart tightened. His girl was going to the place where his mother-in-law fell. At that time, would she be very sad? Would she cry? She would definitely be very sad, very upset, and would definitely shed tears. And once again, he couldn't accompany her. I'm sorry, my baby. I let you face sadness alone again, Xia Jinyuan answered Yi Qian with his thin lips tightly pursed. His heart became heavy. Yi Qian saw the message and smiled. I'm not sad because I've already found the murderer. I'm not sad. Don't worry, my Captain Xia. I'm only happy. She had already accepted her mother's death and untied the knot in her heart from 2 lifetimes. She really wasn't sad. But when the day came, she thought she would cry. The two of them replied to each other through text messages. Their words were full of happiness and happiness. V8, who was sitting in the back, whispered to Qining, she must be texting Yi Qian. How do you know? Qining whispered. She didn't know Xia Jinyuan, but she knew that the Xia Jinyuan in front of her was completely different from the Xia Jinyuan in the rumors. The Xia Jinyuan in front of her was the real Xia Jinyuan. The Xia Jinyuan in the rumors. She didn't quite understand. How could the rumors say that the Xia Jinyuan in the rumors be a devil incarnate who didn't accomplish anything and just fooled around? Chapter 56-74. The Great Red Star lives up to your expectations. How did these untrue rumors come out? Was someone deliberately spreading rumors to smear family Xia's reputation? A trace of gloom flashed across Qin Ying's eyes. Should she remind Xia Jinyuan? They were not familiar with each other, so it was not good to remind him. She should remind her boyfriend and let him tell Xia Jinyuan himself. At around 3:40 in the morning, Xia Jinyuan, V8, and Qin Ying arrived at the airport. Yi Qian also stopped texting. She took a nap and set off at around 6 o'clock to complete the mission she needed to complete. Listening to the pitter-patter of rain outside, Yi Qian put on her clothes and leaned against the temporary lounge arranged for her. She slowly closed her eyes. Deep in the mountains, rain and fog shrouded the area. Rainwater dripped from the tips of the emerald green trees. Someone walked through the leaves, and the rainwater left on the leaves at night turned into a light drizzle and sprinkled all over their bodies. A few figures brushed through the leaves. They were agile, unaffected by the dense trees and shrubs. They walked quickly like animals that had lived in the forest for many years. They carried guns and machetes on their back. When they encountered a forest that needed to be cleared, they directly used the machetes to cut a path for themselves to pass through. There were a total of 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman. They were the bandits who had crossed the border from Myanmar. They were not tall. Please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. The men were thin and capable, while the woman was thin and agile. The 4 of them worked together and walked several kilometers in a short while. The rain soaked their raincoats became heavier and heavier. The first one to shout, "Stop," was the thin and agile female bandit. After she cut down a few branches, she said to the other 3 in Burmese, "We can rest for a while. It should be safe here." They had been on the road for 3 hours. 3 hours of walking on flat ground was not a problem, but 3 hours of walking in the mountains with no roads would be extra tiring. Looking at the time, it was 5 o'clock in the morning. The 3 of them nodded in agreement. They sat directly on the wet, rotten leaves that were full of the smell of decay. The 4 of them were on high alert, resting while observing their surroundings. They rarely spoke. Every time they spoke, they had to speak first. Usually, they rarely communicated. They helped each other and were wary of each other. They knew that each other's background was not simple, so they did not say what they had done. They did not need to know about the past. They only knew that in order to escape, they had worked together to kill many people. This was what they had done together. Before they succeeded in escaping, the 4 of them were tied to the same boat. No one could leave alone. If anyone had the thought of leaving alone, they would definitely join hands to kill that person. After resting for about 10 minutes, the 4 of them set off again. This time, they walked a little slower than before. They had no choice. They were hungry and needed to replenish their energy. Finally, they reached the top of the mountain. Standing at the top of the mountain, the female bandit took out a map that had been wrapped in waterproof paper. She looked at the surroundings carefully and then looked at the bottom of the mountain. She said to the other 3, "We have to continue walking. Today we can go to the bottom of the mountain and look for food first. We'll find a way to get a car. With a car, we can avoid the Chinese armed police and reach here." She pointed at the map. The other 3 bandits looked over and confirmed that they had not taken the wrong route. One of the bandits said, "It's good to have a car, but the Chinese armed police are very cunning. If we drive, we need to consider whether they will follow." This was the thing that worried the 4 of them the most. However, their escape route was the closest to the Chinese border. There was no other way. "If we're discovered, we'll kill our way out," another bandit said fiercely. His small eyes were cold and fierce. "We've already killed so many. We're not afraid to kill a few more." Chapter 56-75. 2 of the 3 male bandits had already spoken, but the last one had yet to speak. He leaned against a tree and chewed on some unknown tender leaves to allay his hunger. He rarely participated in the other 3's speech, and he rarely expressed his own opinions. He followed them closely, and his silence made the other 3 wary of him. The female bandit, Ma Gang, had been paying attention to this person. Seeing that he didn't speak, she directly reported his prison number, 5367. The 4 of them didn't say their names, and still used their numbers as code names. 5367, "Why haven't you spoken?" Ma Gang asked with a smile. These years of training had made this girl, who was once thin and small, become very charming. Even though she was now in a sorry state, it was difficult to hide the flirtatious look in her eyes. It was a seductive charm that came from her bones. She used charm to hide her ruthlessness. The felon number 5361 glanced at her, and his cold eyes were filled with ruthlessness. "You only need to enter Laos and I need to go back to Vietnam. When we reach Laos we will separate. Don't look for anyone and don't remember anyone." What he meant was, since they were going to go their separate ways, was there a need to communicate? Ma Gang chuckled. 5367, "Why must you go to Vietnam? Are you from Vietnam? I said it before, don't tell me you don't agree? When we reach Laos we will go abroad together, and then we will separate abroad to ensure that everyone is safe. It doesn't make sense for you to bring it up alone and go to Vietnam alone. 5367. Now the four of us are tied together. Since we said we would escape together and go abroad together, we won't agree to let you go to Vietnam alone. The bandit with the code name 3237 gritted his teeth and said with a fake smile, "We came out together and killed people together. Now let's go abroad together." Another bandit also spoke. Their hands were stained with sin, and their expressions and voices were filled with coldness that was different from ordinary people. "We separated in Xin Ma, and now you mention going to Vietnam." 5367. This isn't appropriate. The atmosphere suddenly became a little tense. It was 3 against 1. Bandit number 5367 was obviously at a disadvantage, but he was not the type to be at a disadvantage. When he saw that the 3 of them were forcing him to submit, his eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He pressed the corners of his mouth very, very tightly. His whole person was like a taut bowstring, ready to shoot a fatal arrow at any time. These fellows were all ruthless characters. After Lena left, Ma Gang became one of General Min Lai's people and took over most of the work that Lena was responsible for. She became one of General Min Lai's subordinate. Unfortunately, she was not as lucky as Lena. In less than a year and a half, she was targeted by the Burmese police and successfully arrested. Bandit number 5367 was a Burmese black market military businessman. His origin was unclear. Some said that he was Burmese, while others said that he was from Vietnam and Laos. He had been active in the Burmese underground market for several years. This time, he was arrested by the Burmese police because his subordinates betrayed him. Bandit number 3237, the guy with the broken eyebrow in the left corner, he was the one who created the horrific murders in Myanmar. His human nature was twisted, and he had no mercy. As long as he targeted a target, the target's family would become his target. A total of 6 families were killed in Myanmar. Bandit number 7256, the punctuation feature was a black tattoo on his neck. This guy was more powerful and troublesome. He was from Kachin, and he was the leader of a small village in Kachin. The Burmese military took action to suppress the village, and a guy who was a little official raped a girl in the village. Tip: enter Panda Literature in the search engine and you will find this site. Thank you. Chapter 5675, Panda. Chapter 5676. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5676, Urban Romance. Chapter 5676. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. After 7256 found out about it, he immediately brought his Kachin knife and chopped off the head of the guy who raped the little girl that night. While committing the crime, he was discovered by the sentinels. Since he had started it, he would go all the way. He killed a few of the sentinels with his saber. If he had not discovered them early, he would have killed a few more with his saber. He was from Kachin, so the military was a little wary of him. After much consideration, they decided to hand him over to the police for murder. The local police chief was so worried that he couldn't sleep. If the military couldn't deal with someone so casually, the police couldn't deal with him either. It was fine if they killed him, but he was also a small leader of the Kachin people. If they didn't deal with him carefully, they would offend the entire Kachin people. According to the original plan, 7256 would be locked up at most. However, 7256 was not willing to be locked up by himself. He had been secretly thinking of ways to escape. This time, 7256 was the mastermind of the escape. Ma Gang, on the other hand, only started to make decisions after escaping. After she accepted Lena's job, all of her itineraries revolved around Burma, Laos, Vietnam, and Singapore. She was most familiar with the escape route. The place she wanted to go the most was New Horse. Once there, she would change her escape route and return to Burma to continue working for General Minlai. That was her plan. Number 5367's silence made Ma Gang uneasy. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. He was afraid that he would be betrayed by 5367. Kachin Man number 7256 also did not want 5367 to go to Vietnam alone. He could go to Vietnam, but the prerequisite was that all four of them had to escape to Sinma first. Once the four of them split up in Sinma, they would have nothing to do with each other in the future. Ma Gang saw that the other two had already targeted 5367. Her eyes flashed and she came out to smooth things over. Okay. We are still together now. We can't have internal strife. If there were any difficult problems, they would have to wait until they reached Laos. Right now, we are standing on the Chinese side's territory. I'm sure the three of you have seen how difficult it is to deal with the Chinese armed police. If I had a second choice, I would definitely not enter China's territory. At the mention of the Chinese armed police, the tense atmosphere disappeared. Arms dealer 5367, whose eyes were gloomy, tightened his cheeks and sneered. Go to Shinma? It won't be too late to go to Singapore after we're out of China. Your route has to pass through the border town of the Chinese side. This is a small border town with a large number of armed police and narcotics officers stationed there. It depends on whether we can escape from the border town alive. The border city was their biggest obstacle. Whether or not they could reach Laos depended on whether or not they could escape through the border city. Ma Gang smiled even more charmingly and winked at the arms dealer 5367. My brother, the Chinese armed police first have to know that we are in their territory before they can arrest us. If they don't know anything, how do you think they can catch us? When 3237 heard this, he immediately went over. He was so close that he was about to stick to Ma Gang. He wanted to stick to Ma Gang, but Ma Gang reached out and pushed him away. He was not annoyed, and his face was not as ferocious as when he was talking to arms dealer 5367. He asked with a smile, "Why do you say that? Why do you say that?" Ha, because it's embarrassing to say it out loud. Think about it, Myanmar has always been strong in front of the Chinese. Our police and military all think that they are stronger than the Chinese. But have you heard of the news that 4 of the criminals in China's custody escaped at once? Ha, I haven't heard of such news from the Chinese side. But here in Myanmar, 4 felons escaped at once. We killed our way out until the police and military couldn't find us. How useless. Chapter 5677. The 10,000 miles Red Star lives up to your expectations. You're so useless that you can't even catch the 4 of us. Do you think our police and military will tell the Chinese armed police? For the sake of face, they might choose to hide it. No smoke rose from the village at the foot of the mountain. The villagers who got up early started to cook and start a new day. On the 5th day of the lunar calendar, the Chinese people were still celebrating the spring festival. The small villages were no exception. Every family burned big and hot firewood. The whole family sat around the firewood, talking and laughing. They were very happy. The 4 people on the mountain looked at the smoke from the firewood and seemed to smell the aroma of food from the smoke. Solve the stomach problem first, then we'll talk about other problems. Kachin Man number 7256 was the first to go down the mountain. Murderer number 3237 followed closely behind, afraid that the other party would suddenly escape by himself. At this time, they were helping each other, but they were also on guard against each other. Everyone needed the other's help, but no one trusted the other. It took more than 2 hours to travel from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. At this time, every family in the village had finished their breakfast. A few children in traditional costumes were playing around the front and back of the house. They wore new clothes and new shoes, and their small faces had innocent and carefree smiles. They were playing hide and seek. One person would look for the other, and the rest would be caught. Murderer number 3237 came out from the tree. Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time. He slowly came out and looked around vigilantly. After confirming that there was no one around, he waved his hand and signaled the other three to come out. The three who received the signal came out one by one, and all of them leaned against a 2-story wooden house. They needed to steal some food and eat until they were full before continuing on their journey. They couldn't be discovered by the villagers here. If they were discovered, they would definitely be targeted by the Chinese armed police. You're so useless that you can't even catch the 4 of us. Do you think our police and military will tell the Chinese armed police? For the sake of face, they might choose to hide it. No smoke rose from the village at the foot of the mountain. The villagers who got up early started to cook and start a new day. On the 5th day of the lunar calendar, the Chinese people were still celebrating the Spring Festival. The small villages were no exception. Every family burned big and hot firewood. The whole family sat around the firewood, talking and laughing. They were very happy. The 4 people on the mountain looked at the smoke from the firewood mixed with the rain and fog. They seemed to smell the aroma of food from the smoke. We'll talk about other problems after we solve the stomach problem. The Kachin man with serial number 7256 was the first to descend the mountain with serial number 3237 following closely behind, afraid that the other party would suddenly escape by himself. At this time, they were helping each other, but they were also on guard against each other. Everyone needed the other's help, but no one trusted the other. It took more than 2 hours to travel from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. At this time, every family in the village had finished their breakfast. A few children in traditional costumes were playing around the front and back of the house. They wore new clothes and shoes, and their small faces had innocent and carefree smiles. They were playing hide and seek. One of them would search while the rest would be captured. Serial number 3237 slowly came out from behind the tree and looked around vigilantly. After confirming that there was no one around, he waved his hand and signaled the other 3 to come out. The 3 who received the signal came out one by one, and all of them leaned against a 2-story wooden house. They needed to steal some food and eat until they were full before continuing on their journey. They couldn't be discovered by the villagers here. Once they were discovered, they would definitely be targeted by the Chinese armed police. They needed to steal some food and eat until they were full before continuing on their journey. They couldn't be discovered by the villagers here. Once they were discovered, they would definitely be targeted by the Chinese armed police. Chapter 5678. The 10,000 Miles Red Star Lives Up to Your Expectations. Chapter 5678. Suicide deep in the mountains. No matter what time it was, there was no hustle and bustle of the city. It was so quiet that even the crowing of a rooster could be heard by more than half of the village. Behind the moss-covered stone wall, there was no more sound as soon as the child's voice fell. Ma Gang, who had immediately crouched down, heard the sound and his expression suddenly changed. He cursed in his heart, "Oh no!" He quickly bent down and climbed up the stone wall with nimble hands and feet. She saw bandit number 3237 grab the child's throat with one hand, trying to strangle the child to death. The child's legs were still struggling, and his eyes were wide open. This was a little boy who was no more than 5 or 6 years old. He was wearing a brand new national costume. His round little face was red from suffocation, and his life was about to disappear. Ma Gang quickly rushed over. 3237. You're courting death. Ma Gang slashed at 3237's arm, causing him to feel pain and have no choice but to let go. You killed a child here. Are you trying to tell the Chinese armed police that we passed by here? 3237 said ruthlessly. He saw me. I have to kill him. Stupid. Ma Gang quickly picked up the child. The child who was saved had regained his oxygen. His whole body curled up and he coughed rapidly. Seeing that the child was fine, Ma Gang let out a long sigh of relief. The enemy she didn't want to face the most was not the police or military of her country, but the military of China. Please take note of the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. These guys in military green uniforms were like wolves in the mountains. As long as they had their eyes on you, no matter how hard you tried to escape, you would not be able to escape from their palms. The mountains were high and the water was deep. They would still have a way to catch you. The first thing General Minlai said to her was, "If one day you are targeted by the Chinese armed police, find a place to kill yourself. Don't come back alive to see him." Even General Minlai was afraid of the Chinese armed police. This showed how powerful these guys were. On the way out, she didn't want to face the Chinese armed police at all. And 3237, this stupid guy, actually wanted to kill a Chinese child. He even chose the stupidest way. Drowning the child was better than strangling him to death. Ma Gang glared at the guy who acted on impulse without thinking about the consequences. "Why aren't you leaving? Waiting for His Excellency to come out? Are we waiting for the Chinese armed police to know that we are passing by?" 3237, who was a little annoyed that he was stopped from making a move, suddenly came to his senses. He had almost forgotten that he was now in the Chinese territory. He hurriedly caught up, stepped on the stone wall, and quickly left with Ma Gang. Outside, Ma Gang said to the two guards with a solemn face, "Let's continue on our way. We'll find something to eat in the mountains." Without asking what had happened inside, the arms dealer 5367 and the Kachin man 7256 followed Ma Gang and disappeared into the forest in the blink of an eye. They found out that the female prisoner 62, although she was a woman, knew a lot. They didn't know what she used to do and how she was caught by the Burmese police. Although they were now tired and hungry, as long as they thought of the Chinese armed police, they also gathered their strength. In order to survive, they had to leave. The child was lucky enough to escape. He still didn't know what had happened, and he didn't know that he had almost died just now. The child was very scared. He coughed and wailed. The group of children played hide and seek in front and behind the house. The little boy, who had just escaped death, was looking for everyone by himself. He found all the little boys who were hiding. His cries didn't make the little boys come out. They all covered their mouths and laughed softly, letting the little boy cry. Chapter 56-79. The 10,000 miles Red Star lives up to your expectations. Don't go out, he's lying to us. He wants to trick us to go out, don't bother with him, let him cry. The naive children didn't know that there was danger coming from their little friend. They naively thought that the little boy was crying to lure them out. The adults in the house heard it, but they didn't come out immediately. It was normal for children to cry. In addition, the house was full of people, and they were talking about an important matter. The adults' attention was all on the house, and they didn't pay much attention to the child's crying. This was a small village, set up by the side of a mountain. There weren't many people in the village, only 27 households. In total, there were nearly 200 villagers. Old and young, all of them had lived here for generations and were self-sufficient. Although they weren't rich, every family was happy and healthy, living a leisurely and poor life. There were children who went to school, but there weren't many. The main reason was that there was a lack of information here, and the adults didn't think there was a difference between going to school and not going to school. In their eyes, going to school or not was the same. In the end, they would still have to return to the village and inherit everything, and their daughters would get married early and have children. Take note of the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. They had completed the biggest task of their lives. In the house, the voices of the adults were sometimes loud, sometimes long sighs, and sometimes silent. Occasionally, one could hear the sound of someone slamming the table. You guys stop persuading me. You can see my family's situation. I broke my leg, and I have to work at the beginning of spring. If the two of them go to school, who will take care of the family? No matter what you say, it's useless. I won't agree to let the siblings go back. One is 14, the other is 12. They can get married and have a wife. Why should they go to school? The male owner smoked a cigarette. When the honest and simple man was stubborn, he was even more stubborn than an old cow in the field. No one could persuade him. The female owner didn't have much right to speak. Seeing that her husband was a little emotional, she worriedly advised, "Don't be angry, talk to the cadres properly. What do they want from our family? Talk to them properly." The female owner of the house, who had never gone to school and had never left the village, was simple and kind. She gently comforted him so that the atmosphere in the house would not be so stiff. On the 5th day of the 5th month, a group of grassroots cadres from the village administration came to visit the village named Kunabu-e. They were here to persuade the adults who had children in school to continue sending their children back to school after the new year. Every year, on the eve of school reopening, the grassroots cadres would travel across mountains and valleys to visit families so that the children could continue their studies after school reopened. Most of the adults would allow their children to continue going to school after being persuaded by the basic cadres. However, a minority of the adults would not listen to the advice at all. They would make their own decisions. Even if their children were willing to go to school, they would not agree. The grassroots cadres' saliva was almost dry from all the talking, but they still didn't get a nod from this family. In the end, the adults in the family only had one sentence. The family is short of labor. The two children have grown up and are already adult. If they don't come back to help, they won't even know how to do farm work in the future. The family has no food, water, and clothes. It will be embarrassing to walk in the village. Due to the stubbornness of the male owner of the house, the few grassroots cadres had already been sitting in this house for more than 2 hours. When the grassroots cadres thought that there were still a few more houses that they needed to visit, they had no choice but to temporarily stop. Chapter 5680. The 10,000 Miles Red Star Will Live Up to Your Expectations. Chapter 5680. Suicide. We've noted down your family's difficulties. We can discuss and solve them. Don't let your children's studies be delayed because of farm work. How about this? You can think about it carefully. We'll come back tomorrow. The leader of the group got up and prepared to leave. Just as he finished speaking, the male owner's expression turned ugly. He said stiffly, "If studying is really useful, why don't you go to the big city after graduating? Why do you still go home?" The leader of the group heard too many words like this. He didn't get angry because he chose to go back to his hometown after graduation. Instead, he smiled and said, "Because we have too many children here who need to go to school. I hope that they can go out and see the world. Even if they come back one day, they will have learned a skill and come back to make a fortune." After the only university student in the group finished speaking, the cries outside were getting closer and closer. The scared little boy ran and cried, looking for his parent. When the mistress saw that her son was still crying, she thought that he had fallen somewhere. However, the little boy pointed at his neck and cried as he told the adults that someone was strangling his neck. He didn't know what else to say. He only knew that someone was strangling his neck. His neck was hurting even now. The adults knew that this wasn't a simple matter. Strangling someone's neck was a murder, especially when they saw the little boy's neck. Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time. Everyone was shocked by the green mark on the ground. The female owner carried her son and the group went to the backyard of her house. There was no one in the backyard. The mountain was also quiet, as if nothing had happened. The young university student looked at the most experienced member of the group. This old man came forward and asked carefully, After finding out that the person who strangled the little boy was a stranger, he deduced that a stranger had entered the village. A stranger had entered the village. Some villagers suggested that they should bring tools to find the stranger and beat him up. He even came to their village to kill someone. How preposterous! The old man felt that something wasn't right. Even if it was a stranger, why would he kill a child who met him? It was very abnormal. Unless he doesn't want anyone to see it. The young college student analyzed the situation rationally. He couldn't show his face, so he secretly climbed over the wall. Little Boa saw him, so he wanted to kill Little Boa to hide himself. As for why he did not kill Little Boa after that, the college student did not know. That was because the frightened little boy did not mention that there was also a strange woman. At that time, he was so frightened that he didn't notice that there was a strange woman beside him. Around 11 in the morning, the police station of the local government received a call. A stranger had sneaked into a village and was discovered by a little boy. The stranger tried to kill the little boy, but he did not kill the little boy. The basic cadres who entered the village found footprints at the scene, but they did not dare to destroy them. They kept the scene and waited for the police to arrive. The geographical location of the border city is special. There are primeval forests everywhere. There will always be some criminals who risk their lives to cross the border into our country and endanger the stability of our country. When the police received such a call, they would attach great importance to it. They would not just go through the motions. They would go over to ask a few questions, take a statement, and then leave it at that. This time, the police were even more cautious. We received a notice from the armed police that 4 felons who have killed countless people have entered our country. The armed police have been looking for them in the mountains, but there is no news so far. Chapter 5681. Arrival. The location of the village happened to be close to where the 4 criminals had infiltrated. After receiving the news, the police immediately notified the armed police to head to the village to check on the situation. At this time, the fully armed Yi Qian was sitting in a helicopter, patrolling along the primeval forest of the border town. Below the helicopter was an undulating mountain range with no end in sight. On the helicopter, the sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. The weather was so good that not a single cloud could be seen. At 11:36 in the afternoon, the helicopter crew received the latest news that a village had been infiltrated by strangers and a young boy had almost been killed. At 12:30, the helicopter arrived above the village. After circling around, it found a suitable spot for parachuting. The fully armed Yi Qian carried his parachute and jumped down skillfully from the sky. Immediately after, the 4 armed police jumped down with their parachute. The 5 white umbrellas opened up and swayed like a huge flower. It didn't take long for them to reach their destination. The landing point wasn't very good. The large umbrella was easily caught by the branches and couldn't land safely. Yi Qian calmly adjusted his direction to maintain his balance. He pulled the large umbrella bit by bit and landed in the paddy field. It was still spring, so all the paddy fields were temporarily empty. There was no planting or plowing. When Yi Qian landed, he ran on the uneven paddy field for a while before stopping and landing safely. When his feet touched the ground, the large umbrella was already unhooked. Yi Qian quickly put away the parachute and signaled to the pilot on the helicopter that they had landed safely. She began to help the other 4 armed police officers put away their parachute. After all the parachutes were put away, a rope was lowered from the helicopter. The parachutes were wrapped around the rope and slowly returned to the helicopter. The parachutes were too heavy and not suitable for Yi Qian and the other 4 armed police officers to carry. The armed police officer, Li Xian, was the one who had picked up Yi Qian at the airport. After the helicopter left, he smiled at Yi Qian and said, "Do you guys have to learn everything? You can even jump so smoothly with a parachute." Yi Qian, who was inspecting the weapons, laughed. Yes, we have to learn all kinds of martial arts. We have to have more skills. Look, after learning this parachute jump, we immediately used it. Ha ha ha, that makes sense. With more skills, I'll feel more confident. Li Xian put the rifle on her shoulder and took out the map from her pocket. She pointed at the map with her gloved hand and stopped smiling. When she spoke again, her voice was very serious. The village is here. It's about a 10-minute walk. The paddy field was quite a distance away from the village, so they chose the nearest paddy field to land. The other 3 armed policemen had already finished checking their weapons. Li Xian and Yi Qian had already finished looking at the map, so they only needed to take a quick look. Stepping on the soft soil of the fields, the group of 5 strode towards the village. The atmosphere in the village was somewhat tense. The simple and honest villagers had never thought that someone would sneak into their village and even want to kill a young boy. Now, all 27 families knew about this matter and were discussing it spiritedly. The police had not arrived yet. There was only a mountain road here. The car could only drive about 30 kilometers away. It would take some time to walk in. However, the grassroots leaders of the village government were not there. They were still in the villager's house where the stranger had sneaked in. The frightened young boy was sleeping on the bed. He was not sleeping very well. His small eyebrows were tightly knitted and his body twitched from time to time. The female owner was very worried and asked the elders in the village to give the child talisman water. These were some of the old habits in the village. The grassroots leaders could only watch and could not come forward to stop them. Mobile phone website. Tip: enter Panda Literature in the search engine and you will find this website. Thank you. Chapter 5681. Panda Arrival. Chapter 5682. Difficult. The police, who were still on their way into the mountains, had already learned that 5 soldiers from the armed police had arrived at the village. The leading police officer instantly let out a sigh of relief. Finally, someone had entered the village. If the criminals were still around the village, they would feel more at ease with 5 soldiers guarding them. It was 32 kilometers into the mountains. Based on the calculation of 5 kilometers per hour, it would take 6 hours. They still had to hurry and not always rest. Therefore, the 6 police officers arrived at the village around 5 in the afternoon. They had no choice. They also wanted to be fast, but the conditions did not allow it. Even if they wanted to be fast, there was nothing they could do. This was not the only village deep in the mountains like this. There were many villages like this. They lived a life isolated from the rest of the world. This also caused the villagers to be simple and not have much vigilance. The police were most worried that the simple villagers would lead the wolf into the house and harm themselves in the end. This kind of thing had happened before. Knowing that the soldiers from the armed police had arrived, the leading old police officer's footsteps became lighter. The armed police have already sent 5 soldiers to the village. With them guarding the village, everyone can rest assured. The old police officer who had finished talking to the station said loudly. His expression was no longer as serious as before. Hearing this, the policemen all let out a sigh of relief. Their tense jaws were finally relaxed. They let out a breath and then took a deep breath. There was a slight smile on their faces. The armed police officers are still faster. We immediately rushed over when we received the call. By the time we reached the village, it would have been dark. They really came just like that. Ha ha ha, they have a helicopter. We don't have the conditions. We can only watch. When will we have a helicopter in the station? I guarantee that the speed of dispatch will be as fast as a rocket. The ones who spoke were the younger ones. They had been working for 3 or 4 years. The leading old police officer had been working for 12 years. Hearing this, he laughed and scolded. You guys sure know how to think. If the helicopter is in your hands, who will fly it? Once you enter the mountains, do you only take the helicopter and not go down? You also need to know how to parachute. Do you know how to do that? That's a completely unrealistic idea. Speaking of this, the young police officers felt a wave of sadness. That's right. They had the equipment, but they didn't know how to do it. The police force in the township government under the border town was limited, and the conditions were also quite limited. Sometimes there were too many police officers and there were no vehicles. Motorcycles and bicycles became the main means of transportation for the police. The policemen who were dispatched this time were riding motorcycles. 3 of them were on each motorcycle, and 1 of them was their own motorcycle. There were a total of 6 of them. They stepped on the muddy mountain road and crossed the mountains towards the village deep in the mountains. Traffic was blocked, and it was difficult to travel. Even news from the outside was difficult to get in. Therefore, the villagers here were used to working with their backs to the sky. There was nothing wrong with being cooped up in the mountains for a lifetime. On the contrary, they felt very comfortable, free, and unrestrained. The road in the mountains was very difficult to walk on, and it had been raining non-stop recently. The old policeman leading the way reminded the policemen behind him to pay attention to their feet from time to time, and to hold on to the branches and shrubs to prevent their feet from slipping. After walking for a while, the soles of the 6 policemen's shoes were all stained with yellow mud. There were also yellow mud marks on their trousers. The bottom of their trousers were already wet. If they walked for a while longer, they were afraid that even their shoes would be wet. The path was so narrow that only one person could pass through it. One was a mountain, and the other was a mountain stream. The scenery was very beautiful, but no one appreciated it. They held their police caps in their hands to prevent them from being hooked by the branches that grew out of the mountain and falling into the water. At the same time, they carefully looked at their feet to prevent themselves from slipping and falling directly into the stream. Small note: enter Panda Literature in the search engine and you will find this site. Thank you. Chapter 5682. Panda Literature Difficult. Chapter 5683. Forces. The 6 police officers walked with great difficulty. They would occasionally use their satellite phones to contact the outside world so that their comrades could rest assured. Without the satellite phones, they would lose contact with the outside world. The signal in the mountains was not good. Even if they had an emergency phone, it could only be used as a watch. The only way to contact the outside world was through the satellite phone, which was more important than their lives. The satellite phones were in the hands of the younger officers. The older officers would occasionally remind them not to leave the satellite phones behind. If anything happened, they would not be able to contact the outside world. Yi Qian and the other 4 already knew that 6 police officers had entered the mountains. They each had a satellite phone, which was much better than the 6 police officers. The police officers were sent into the mountains after receiving orders. They would not face the criminals directly. Yi Qian and the other 4 had to face the criminals directly. If necessary, they would use force to kill the criminals. However, Yi Qian's mission was a little special. Although the Burmese side said that they could kill the 4 criminals who had escaped into China, Yi Qian had to bring one of them back alive. Ma Gang. Yi Qian had to bring Ma Gang back alive. She was now just an ordinary armed police officer. Her equipment and jungle camouflage were all provided by the armed police force. She was fully equipped from head to toe. The Burmese side told the Chinese armed police that if Yi Qian wanted to bring Ma Gang back alive, he could only use the identity of an armed police officer. As for General Min Lai, there was no way to bring him back and solve the problem in one go. Min Lai of the Burmese side was no longer satisfied with his activities in his own country. He had already extended his evil hand into China. He was trying to set up a financial chain in China to provide him with a steady stream of funds. No matter what he did in his own country, it had nothing to do with China. However, when he came over, China could not tolerate it. We had to do everything we could to get rid of all of Min Lai's forces in China. Why did Ma Gang know so much about China? It was because Ma Gang, who could speak Chinese, was Min Lai's contact in China. It was impossible for China to capture Min Lai, but Myanmar said that they could kill Ma Gang, who had escaped to China, so they had enough reason to capture him alive. Even Captain Deng, who had given the suggestion, did not know the inside story. For the sake of caution and safety, Detachment Zheng took Captain Deng's suggestion and reported it to the higher-ups. That was how Yi Qian came over. It just so happened that Yi Qian knew Ma Gang. What a coincidence! The village that was built against the mountain could be seen if one looked up. The arrival of Yi Jian's group of 5 had already attracted the attention of the villagers. Although the villagers rarely left the village, they were still familiar with the armed police. Every year, countless armed police officers would pass by their village with guns on their backs and bring propaganda materials for them to read. Are you sending us publicity materials again? I don't know. Quickly call the village chief over. The village chief is still at home. Just bring them over. It's only 5 people. It's not a lot. The village chief is also at home. It's good to bring them over. Let the village chief read the propaganda materials to us. You'll definitely listen carefully. You won't fall asleep like you used to. When they entered the first villager's house, the nearby villagers all sat down and ate their homebrewed wine while chatting while waiting for the police to enter the village. Note: enter Panda Literature in the search engine to find this website. Thank you. Chapter 5683. Panda Literature Forces. Chapter 5684. 10 years instead of the police. The armed police who patrolled the mountains every year during the spring festival arrived. After a few words, a middle-aged man wearing a traditional costume walked out of the house. Before he even got close, he started shouting from a distance. Yi Qian really didn't understand what they were shouting about. But the other armed police soldiers could understand. They were all from Yun province, and could understand what the villagers were saying. His companion Li Xian was also from Yun province. When he heard this, he waved his hand and answered with a smile. He waved his hand again and again, but Yi Qian couldn't see it clearly. What did the villagers ask? Li Xian first waved his hand and then shook his head. Was he refusing something? Li Xian said a few more words, and the middle-aged man quickened his pace a lot. In the end, he ran as fast as he could. He asked us if we were here to bring promotional materials. Lu Wei translated for Yi Qian. Li Xian said no, they wanted to go to the hotel and ask this big brother to lead the way. Big brother said yes and ran all the way here. The middle-aged man ran over. The middle-aged men who were chatting in the room all stood up and came out. 2 women carrying children also came out of the room when they heard the noise. They didn't follow him. They just stood at the doorstep and watched. From time to time they would say a few words, but no one knew what they were talking about. Yi Qian said in a low voice, "They're quite friendly to you all." Yes, in the past 10 years or so, our relationship has become closer, and the commoners have become more and more familiar with us, so they don't reject us as much as before. In addition, we are all from the Yun province, so the commoners have even less scruples. Sometimes, when we were patrolling the village, the local people would invite us to sit in their houses. They would be happy even if we had to drink some water. Although it was only a few words, Yi Qian could tell that it had been difficult in the past. Rejection was a taboo for garrison troops. The slightest carelessness could lead to conflict with the local people. Once the situation went out of control, there could even be bloodshed. But now, she only saw the commoners' friendliness towards the warriors, and no longer saw any rejection. Our relationship will get better and better in the future, and they will trust us more and more. Yi Qian asked again. Every time you patrol the mountains, do you bring information into the mountains to publicize? Lu Wei nodded with a smile. Yes, we always bring information with us every time we go on patrol. It's about drug prohibition, disaster prevention, national news, and so on. We even bring newspapers. Before the mid-90s, there were no literate people in the village. We would even send someone to stay behind and read it once before asking the villagers questions. We would only leave after making sure that the villagers had memorized it. There's no need for that now. There are more and more literate people in the village. Most of them are children who have gone to school. After the patrolling armed police enter the village, the propaganda materials will be handed over to the village's cadres. The cadres will then hold a general meeting and let the literate children stand in the middle of the big drying field. They will read the propaganda materials word by word. After reading it a few times, all the children will remember it. This is also a big change in the village. Although it's not as good as outside, we all believe that in another 10 years, all the children in the village will be able to read and read. In another 10 years. Yi Qian thought about how life would change in another 10 years. It could be described as changing with each passing day. 10 years ago, they would never have imagined that their country would have changed so much 10 years later. The middle-aged man walked over and enthusiastically shook hands with the 5 armed police officers. When he shook hands with Yi Qian, he was slightly surprised. There were countless patrolling armed police officers in the village, but this was the first time he had seen a female armed police officer. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine and you will find this website. Thank you. Chapter 5684. Panda Literature 10 Years. Chapter 5685. Collect. The other 3 middle-aged men did not shake hands. After greeting them with a smile, the group of men led Yi Qian and the other 4 back to their home. The upper home was also Little Boa's home. In the whole family, only Little Boa's home was the closest to the mountain. He was also the tallest villager in the family. Standing in his house, he could see the entire village. The roads were all uphill, with fields and land in the middle. On both sides of the road were uneven small wooden buildings. It was very unique, as if it was a place where the experts of the world lived. With green mountains and clear waters, the scenery was so beautiful that it made people linger on and forget to return. Yi Qian, who walked quickly, was used to paying attention to the surroundings of the village. After she walked past the village, she would memorize the roads she had taken and the scenery she had seen. Gradually, a 4-dimensional map was formed in her mind, and she memorized every detail. If she had the opportunity to come here again in the future, she would only need to take a look to immediately remember that she had been here before. It's too scary. A bunch of people were sitting at home and they all heard Little Boa crying. Who would have thought that someone wanted to kill Little Boa? If it weren't for the reminder from the township officials, we wouldn't have thought that someone had killed Little Boa. A stranger with no enmity or grudge. When will you kill Little Boa? Along the way, the middle-aged men chatted and told the armed police officers everything they had heard. You've come at the right time. You can ask him when you get there. Are you guys busy? Why don't you go and catch the person who wants to kill Little Boa? If you chase after him now with your skills, you should be able to catch up, right? It's just that I don't know which direction he fled in. It's all mountains and trees. We might not be able to get out even if we go in. If we go in, we might not be able to come out. That guy who wanted to kill Little Boa went into the mountains, but he might not be able to come out either. He might be bitten to death by the wild beasts, or he might fall from the rocks and die from the fall. It's really not a curse, the villagers said honestly. Li Xian and the others kept talking to the villagers while Lu Wei translated for Yi Qian so that Yi Qian could understand what the villagers were talking about. When they found out that the armed police had come for Little Boa, the middle-aged men were so happy that they took pictures. When they were about to reach Little Boa's house, the middle-aged man, who had a rather good lung capacity, immediately yelled, The traffic was basically dismissed, and the communications were basically shut down. Just like now. For the sake of little Boa, the village government officials had put aside their afternoon schedule and sat in the upper house, waiting for the police to arrive. When they heard the villagers below shouting, "The armed police are here," the university student leading the village government officials was the first to rush out. Before the police arrived, the armed police arrived. It didn't matter who came, as long as they could get rid of the danger looming over the small village. The township political cadre's surname was Tang, and his full name was Tang Xian. He watched the 5 armed police soldiers walk around the stone wall. They exchanged glances with each other, and the only female armed police soldier jumped up from the stone wall like a rabbit. He approached the nearest armed police soldier and whispered, "Did you find anything?" "Yes, I've found some questions. I'm still in the process of confirming them. Please wait a moment." He turned to Tang Xian and asked, "Have you guys destroyed this area before? Did you go outside the stone wall to take a look?" "We're not sure if we've destroyed the scene. We only came here to take a look. I didn't let the villagers walk around." After a few glances and nothing happened, they all went back to their houses to sit down. "We really didn't go outside the stone wall." Small note: enter Panda Literature into the search engine to find this site. Thank you. Chapter 5685. Panda Collecting. Chapter 5686. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5686. Betrayal Analysis, Urban Romance, Chapter 5686. Betrayal Analysis. Outside the stone wall, Tang Xian and the rest did not go out to take a look. They checked the backyard a few times, then leaned against the stone wall and looked at the back of the mountain. They did not enter the mountain and did not find any strangers, so they returned to the house. The scene was well protected, especially when little Boa was pointing at the spot where he had been strangled by the stranger. Yi Qian had carefully surveyed the area. Other than little Boa's footprints, there were a few other footprints that belonged to 2 people. In other words, little Boa should have seen 2 strangers. However, little Boa only said that he had seen 1 stranger. Little Boa did not mention the other stranger. He could not rule out the possibility that little Boa was frightened and did not notice that there was a second stranger. Yi Qian, who had leaped out of the stone wall, carefully inspected the area. There were 2 more footprints on the outside than on the inside. There was also a bush that had been trampled over. After blowing the whistle, Li Xian immediately jumped over the wall. "Any new discoveries?" He walked over quickly and asked Yi Qian. "Yes, 2 different footprints were found outside. There are a total of 4 different footprints at the scene." Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Big 1 small. Yi Qian squatted down and pointed at the footprints in the mud. He said coldly, 3 footprints that are between 42 and 44, and 1 that is around 36. 3 men and 1 woman. Li Xian, who quickly squatted down, stared coldly at the footprints left by Yi Qian's fingers. In order to prevent the people on the other side of the stone wall from hearing, Li Xian lowered her voice. "The 4 fugitives we are looking for are 3 men and 1 woman." Yi Qian nodded. "Yes, but we still need to confirm it. Come, take a look at these 2 footprints. They have solved a puzzle in my heart." The soil gave off a fishy smell, and there was also the smell of rotting vegetation. It smelled like mushrooms that were about to grow. When the 2 were mixed together, it was not unpleasant. Yi Qian casually picked up a small branch that was so withered that its bark was peeling off. She pointed at the footprints that could solve her confusion. "Come, look at these footprints. 2 of them are the same size as the ones in the courtyard." She gestured with her fingers. "Look here." Li Xian looked in the direction where the twig in her hand was pointing. Yi Qian said in a deep voice, "The big footprint is facing forward, and the small footprint is stepping on top of the big footprint. This means that the suspect with the large footprint first entered the backyard, and the suspect with the small footprint entered from the back. I've been wondering why the suspect let little boy go. When I saw the footprints, one after the other, I thought of the answer and solved the puzzle. Little boy accidentally bumped into the suspect who went in earlier. He wanted to kill him to silence him. As for the second suspect, he should be the lookout. After hearing that something was wrong, he went in and stopped the first suspect, thus allowing little boy to live. Come over here. She got up again and led Li Xian a few steps. They stopped at a bush that was entangled with a few trees and had formed a thorny net. Yi Qian said, "There are bushes here that have been stepped on. This means that there are people hiding here. Or we can say that there are at least 2 people here acting as lookouts. There are bushes here that have been stepped on. There are also bushes here. There are 2 in total, one on the left and one on the right." In just 5 minutes, Yi Qian had finished surveying the scene. It was also thanks to Tang Xian's timely intervention that the villagers did not destroy the scene. Chapter 5687. Resist. Li Xian's eyes were even colder. So, they really want to cross our country and enter Laos, and the border town is a place they must pass through. Yes, there's one more thing that we need to confirm. It's also a very important hurdle. Show the photos of the 4 criminals to little boy. Let him identify the stranger who strangled him and see if he is the person in the photos. I'm pretty sure it's the 4 of them. Li Xian breathed a sigh of relief. The 4 Burmese fugitives had committed heinous crimes and were even more ruthless. Everyone was worried that they would commit crimes in our country. Once something happened, it would be irreversible damage. Therefore, they had to capture or kill the 4 Burmese fugitives before irreversible damage occurred. The 2 of them climbed over the stone wall. Lu Weihe and the other 2 armed police soldiers looked at the 2 of them. Li Xian used the local language to ask the villagers to return to the house and sit down. They needed to ask little boy some things. Li Xian was a very serious armed police soldier. When he spoke, his expression was tense and his eyes were very firm. As soon as he opened his mouth, the whole atmosphere suddenly became a little stiff and tense. The surrounding villagers suddenly fell several times and did not even dare to speak. They all looked at Li Xian, feeling very uneasy. Did you find something bad? Otherwise, why would he be so serious? Perhaps it was because Li Xian's expression was too serious when she spoke earlier that little boy's mother was a little resistant. Hearing this, she immediately hugged her child tightly and looked at Li Xian warily. Then, she silently walked to her husband's side and whispered something. Lu Wei was close to the couple. When he heard what the hostess said, he quickly explained in the local language, "Don't worry, we are just going to ask a few questions. We won't take little boy away." The male owner glanced at Lu Wei and spoke to his wife in a low voice. As the husband spoke, Yi Qian saw the female owner's vigilance gradually lessen. The surrounding villagers also relaxed slightly. Although they felt that it was a very serious matter that someone wanted to kill little boy, they did not realize that danger was right beside them. And this danger could very well be the danger of the entire village being wiped out. Although Tang Xian and the rest of the village officials were aware of the danger, they did not realize the extent of the danger. If it were not for the frightening seal on little boy's neck, even Tang Xian would not have thought of the danger. Life in the mountains was too comfortable. Although it was at the border, in recent years, our country had increased the intensity of patrols and grasped the situation of every village one by one. Therefore, the small villages in the border town were very stable and there were no major incidents. If it was before the 1990s, there would still be some major events that happened in the small village. For example, the planting of poppies was something that villages like this border town and deep in the mountains and forests had to do before. Now, even the small village where Yi Qian lived had done so in the early 90s. Later on, some ideological work was done to make the villagers aware of the dangers of poppies. After more than 10 years of unremitting efforts, the present results were achieved. Even if they lived in poverty, they would not feel that they were in danger. Instead, they would think that danger was far away from them. Actually, that wasn't the case. Danger seemed to be far away, but when it came at the drop of a hat, there was no time to prepare. If it were not for Ma Gang's intervention, little Boa's little life would have already bid farewell to the blue sky and white clouds. Tip: enter Panda Literature in the search engine and you will find this site. Thank you. Chapter 5687, Panda Resistance. Chapter 5688. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 5688, Drenched in Cold Sweat, Urban Romance. Chapter 5688, Dripping with Cold Sweat. Lu Wei took out the photos. Little Boa glanced at them and pointed at one of the photos. Uncle, it's him. He's the one who pinched me here. His voice was soft as he used his hands to strangle his own neck. As soon as he did that, the face of the mistress, who was hugging him, immediately changed. She quickly reached out to grab little Boa's hand and told him not to do such an uncomfortable thing. Number 3237, born in Myanmar, known as Ong Yi, the serial killer who caused several massacres in Myanmar. He was known for his cruelty, ruthlessness, and inhumanity. Lu Wei smiled amiably as he asked Little Boa. Little Boa nodded with certainty. As for Ma Gang, Little Boa did not point him out because, in Little Boa's memories, Ma Gang did not exist at all. At that time, he was too scared. How could a scared child pay attention to his surroundings? He only cared about crying. The villagers looked at Ong Ye's photo, and everyone's reaction was the same. Don't let them see this guy. If they see him, kill him with a chopper. Pu Chun's villagers had a ruthlessness that was hard to erase. This was a ruthlessness that had been passed down from generation to generation. In the past, they really weren't afraid of killing people, nor did they think that killing people was against the law. Later on, as the township administration was put in place, they went to the village to propagate for decades, and only then did they manage to get the villagers to agree. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 Recommended reading. We know that the law exists, and we know that it is wrong to kill. There are 4 of them, and they are all fugitives from Myanmar. They have committed heinous crimes in their own country, and their hands are stained with countless lives. This Ong Yi, who tried to kill Little Boa, is the most brutal serial killer in Myanmar in decades. The other 3 were arrested by the Burmese police for another matter. They are all felons who escaped into our country. The Burmese police hope that our country can help them and bring all 4 of them to justice. It was only then that the villagers realized how dangerous it was to brush past them. There were guns and people. Little Boa had almost been killed. The mistress hugged Little Boa tightly. Even though the danger had passed, her body was still trembling slightly. When the village officials heard this, they broke out in a cold sweat. They entered the village to do ideological work, but they never thought that there would be 4 fugitives running away from them. The senior township official calmed himself down and asked Lu Wei, "What about now? Have they gone far? Are you here to capture the 4 of them?" This was the problem that he should be most concerned about. What if he didn't go far and came back? Lu Wei answered seriously, "It's only been about 2 hours since the incident. They should have already left, and it's unlikely that they'll return. The 5 of us are indeed here to capture the 4 of them. The 4 of them are all ruthless and vicious. They even dared to kill the police officers of their own country. There are only 5 of you. Why didn't you bring more people? It's too dangerous with just the 5 of you. Yeah, it's too dangerous. There are only 4 of them. You even said that they had guns. Even if we hide in the mountains and shoot at you, you won't be able to find us. Do you want us to find a few strong men from our village to follow you into the mountains to look for them? We are mountain people, and we have brute strength. We won't have a problem taking down 1 or 2 of them. Just as one of the villagers suggested this, little Boa's father immediately said, I'll go with them. If I don't catch them, I won't be at ease. Just now, his son had almost been killed. He had to catch them with his own hands to feel at ease. Chapter 5689. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chase, urban romance, pursue and attack it was impossible for the villagers to follow them. Li Xian, Lu Wei, and the other 2 armed policemen were very clear about the roads in the mountains. Everyone needed to patrol once. How could they not know that they had to patrol 12 times a year? He knew it better than the villagers. At this moment, the township government officials stepped in to stop the villagers from going into the mountains together. Yi Qian and the others could not afford to waste too much time. Since they had confirmed that the 4 criminals had passed through the village, they had to hurry up and follow them. After informing the villagers of the information of the 4 felons, and having the village government officials come forward to persuade them, Yi Qian and the other 4 did not stay for long. They immediately followed from the back mountain of Little Boa's house. It was not easy to chase after a criminal in a primeval forest. Hiding a few people in the vast mountains was not a problem at all. Sometimes, it really depended on intuition to determine whether the criminal was nearby. As for Yi Qian, Li Xian, and the others, as long as they had a general direction, no matter how difficult the path ahead was, they would continue to search without hesitation until they killed all the criminals. After entering the back of the mountain, the 5 of them quickly found the traces left behind by the 4 felons. From the fallen leaves, the shrubs that were stepped on, and the short branches that were abnormally split to the sides, they were all evidence to determine whether or not the felons had passed through here. Southwest. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Li Xian takes out a compass and presses the corners of her mouth, to Laos. There are still 3 villages that they will pass by, but they are all at the foot of the mountain. It is unlikely that they will go down the mountain again, but we can't rule out a similar situation today. Yi Qian nodded, his face as dark as water. They need to fill their stomachs. I'm afraid they came down the mountain today to look for food. But after the incident with Little Boa, with their alertness, it's unlikely that they'll descend the mountain again. They'll only hurry on with their journey. What I'm worried about now is that this village is a tourist area. In order to save time, they might blend in with the tourist attractions and choose to leave by means of transportation. Once they enter the city, the danger will be infinitely greater. In other words, if the 5 of them wanted to control the danger, they had to kill the 4 felons before they entered the tourist area. The shortest time we took to find the criminals in the mountains was 12 days, and that was because we had the help of the little warrior. He was also Li Xian and Lu Wei's comrade in arms. His surname was Hong, and his name was a little cute. His first name was Meow Meow, so he could only let his comrade in arms call him Hong Meow. The little soldiers he was talking about were the police dogs in the team. Every time they chased after a criminal in the jungle, they could not do without their help. For the armed police dogs were not dogs, but little comrades who fought side by side with them. This time, he did not bring a police dog, mainly because he was worried that the police dog would be in danger. Yi Qian laughed and said, "Without the help of the police dogs, we can only rely on ourselves. If they followed the tracks they left behind, they would definitely catch up. Let's go. Head southwest." Yi Qian was very familiar with jungle warfare, so he was not worried. When Li Xian, Lu Wei, Hong Miao Miao, and another armed police soldier named Fu Hing saw this, they all smiled, hugged their guns tightly, and hurried on with their journey. That's right, without the help of their little comrade in arms, they could definitely do it. There would be no problem. At the same time, the 4 felons who had left the village were rushing through the forest. They walked even faster than before. Sometimes, branches would hit them in the face, but they didn't stop. They kept walking towards the southwest direction. They saw a helicopter flying over them, which made the 4 of them feel very uneasy. Chapter 5690. This time, those who fought side by side with Yi Jian were all elites of the armed police force. All of them were agile. After entering the jungle, they shuttled through the leaves like ghosts. At the border city's border defense building, Zheng Weiwei looked at the 5 red dots on the satellite map. He pursed his lips and straightened his back. He was so serious that his subordinates didn't dare to speak loudly. They have entered the fault zone, an armed police officer said softly as he reported the location of the 5 red dots to Zheng Weiwei. There are many cliffs in the fault zone. If the criminals appear in the fault zone, it will be easier for them to find traces of the criminals. A fault zone was a place where the mountains were broken. It was difficult for people to notice it when they were walking in the mountains. If they didn't notice it and accidentally stepped on air, they would fall straight down. If they were lucky, they would be caught by the trees and vines that grew under the fault zone. If they were unlucky, they would break all their bones and injure their internal organs. They would then die under the fault zone. The fault zone was very dangerous, but it was very beneficial for the search. Because you only had one choice, and the second choice was very likely to lead to a dead end. Zheng Weiwei took off his military cap and scratched his head with one hand. He said in a deep voice, "Tell them to be careful. Don't get yourself killed because of a bunch of bastards." Chasing after a few Burmese criminals and sacrificing their own soldiers was the last thing Zheng Weiwei wanted to see. Moreover, he was very worried about Yi Qian. He was very worried. "Contact them via satellite. I'll talk to them," Zheng Weiwei said in a deep voice. He had to talk to Yi Qian. It was a good thing to be hot-blooded, but he had to ensure his own safety first. He couldn't let anything happen to his comrade's daughter. "Yes." The armed police officer in charge of the communication responded in a capable voice. He immediately contacted his comrades who were deep in the forest. Yi Jian was talking to Li Xian. "The direction we're looking for is right. This is the latest trace of footstep. Here." She pointed at a bush, her beautiful face filled with coldness. "Someone stopped here and accidentally reached out to break the buds growing on the bush." This required a very careful observation to discover. Li Xian, who had moved closer to see the new marks, withdrew his gaze and sighed in a low voice. "No wonder you were only slowly searching around here. So you were looking for these subtle marks. Sometimes, the subtle traces are the clues we need to find." Yi Qian smiled. "They are also the clues that we tend to overlook." Reporting, Squad Leader. Soldier Hong Miao came over and handed the satellite phone to Li Xian. The detachment called. Li Xian hurriedly took over the satellite phone and spoke a few words to Detachment Zheng to report their latest situation. "The target has always been in front of us. Our search continues. There is no deviation in direction, and there are no injuries. Everything is normal." Everything was normal and everything was fine. Zheng Weiwei gave a few instructions and then asked Li Xian to pass the satellite phone to Yi Qian. He needed to speak to Yi Qian. Yi Qian took the satellite phone and heard Zheng Weiwei's deep voice. "Little Yi, you've arrived at the fault zone. This is a very dangerous place. There are many cliffs that are hidden by the forest and don't seem to have any problems. You must be careful during the search. Don't let any accidents happen. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine and you will find this website. Thank you." Chapter 56-91. The Great Red Star will live up to your expectations. Yi Jian, who was listening, sighed softly in her heart. Her mother's comrade really took good care of her. Zheng Weiwei, who was staring at Little Red and Black, said seriously, "You must follow the four of them closely. They have a lot of experience fighting in the jungle and their survival skills are also quite strong. They can tell if there is a fault in front of them. I just told Li Xian to arrange for you to be on guard at the back." Li Xian, Lu Wei, and the other three were all elites under Zheng Weiwei. Zheng Weiwei naturally knew how strong his elites were. Zheng Weiwei only knew how strong Yi Qian was from two sources. One was from Captain Deng's words, and the other was from Yi Qian's personal information. Zheng Weiwei was a little worried because he didn't have a complete understanding of her. Yi Qian, who was focused in front of her, smiled and replied, "Weiwei, I once went through a large jungle alone and spent the spring festival in the jungle alone. When I came out, the camouflage I was wearing was so tattered that it looked like it was 10 years old. Don't worry about me. I've trained in the Fault Mountains, so I'm not unfamiliar with jungle warfare." Yi Qian was very touched by Zheng Weiwei's care, but she really didn't need it. Moreover, she was one with Li Xian and the other three armed police officers. Take note, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to your eyes. How could she let them face danger directly while she hid behind them? This didn't suit her principles of cooperation with her comrades, and it also didn't suit her principles of doing things. Zheng Weiwei still wanted to say a few more words, but he seemed to have thought of something. A hint of a smile flashed across his serious face. He paused for a few seconds. "Xiao Yi, I'm looking forward to your exciting performance. I'm looking forward to it." Back then, Hongmei's military capabilities were outstanding in all aspects. Xiao Yi was her daughter, and her daughter seemed to have surpassed her master. He was looking forward to it. "I won't be innocent of your trust," Yi Qian replied with a straight face. She wouldn't let Zheng Weiwei's trust in her be for nothing, and she didn't want to leave any regrets in the place where her mother had fought so hard. After ending the call, Zheng Weiwei pulled up his office chair and sat down. He stared at the little red dot on the electronic screen for a long time. In the boundless forest, silhouettes shuttled back and forth. The branches and leaves swayed. Some were fleeing and some were pursuing. Who would win and who would lose was still unknown. Without any communication device, the four Burmese criminals were already exhausted. When Ma Gang pulled the murderer Ong Ye out of the pit again, she lost her patience and showed her ruthlessness for the first time in front of the three men. 32-37, if you continue to be so careless, the three of us will definitely not save you. You've already exhausted too much of our strength. Listen carefully. I'll say it again. From now on, you won't be able to get any help from the three of us. She needed to leave this place. She needed to go to the border town to contact General Minlai. She needed to live well. She definitely couldn't let herself be implicated by an idiot. Ong Ye, who had escaped from death again, gasped for air. Facing Ma Gang's warning, a hint of gloominess flashed across Ong Ye's eyes. He suppressed the anger in his heart and answered Ma Gang, "I'm also very afraid of accidents, but this place we can't go here and we can't go there. I also want to avoid it." "Since you're afraid, then follow 7256. He's a Kachin who lives in the mountains. He knows the dangers in the depths of the mountains better than you do." As soon as Ma finished speaking, he asked the Kachin man number 7256, "There's a big problem. We're only taking one path now, and there are cliffs on both sides. If the Chinese armed police really catch up with us, they'll easily find our tracks." Chapter 56-92. The Red Star of 10,000 Miles did not disappoint. Chapter 56-92. Urban Romance. Chapter 56-92. Betrayal. Angie reminded Ma Gang, which made her breath tighten. She had ignored such an important question. Looking at the Kachin people, Magong spoke very slowly. If they find any traces, all our efforts will be in vain. We might even die in the hands of the Chinese armed police. The Kachin man did not answer immediately. Instead, he waved the gun in his hand. Why should we take them? Are they only responsible for blocking the branches for us? Ma Gang looked at the gun he was swinging and narrowed his eyes. Do you mean that we're really going to be caught up and fight with the Chinese armed police? What else? Do you chat with them? Ong Ye spat. His twisted eyes were full of madness and paranoia. I haven't killed these guys yet. If we can kill them, ha 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 ha, just thinking about it makes me excited. This was a lunatic who was so stupid that he didn't think about the consequences. Ma Gang refused to talk to a lunatic. She turned to the man with the number 5367. She didn't know if he was a staff member or a Vietnamese. What do you think? The Chinese armed police are very difficult to deal with. If they catch up to us, do we have any other choice? 5367 had the same thoughts as the Kachin people. He did not want to fight with the Chinese armed police. Friends, please prompt. Pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. However, if they really had to face it, would they have any other choice? They had no choice. If they wanted to leave this place alive, they had to kill first, just like when they escaped. Ma Gang's expression was cold and unsightly. The Kachin man glanced at her and said coldly, "Don't forget, you were the one who guided us." If she had known that she would need to pass through the Fault Mountain Range, she would not have chosen this path. She would have come out directly from the previous village. Unfortunately, it was too late for regret. He could only continue forward. The air in the dense forest was not very good. It was humid and stuffy, and there were all kinds of rotten smells mixed together. Ma Gang, who was already in a bad mood, no longer leaned against the tree to rest. Instead, he started to move on by himself. Even a woman like her could grit her teeth and continue on her way. Naturally, the three men didn't rest either. Escaping for their lives was more important. As long as they truly escaped, they would be able to have a good rest. As for Yi Qian and the others, it was just as Detachment Jing had said. Although it was very dangerous for them to be in the Fault Mountain Range, it also greatly reduced the scope of their search. They did not need to split up and search again. The four escaped felons avoided the two cliffs. Their route and direction did not change. This saved Yi Qian and the others a lot of time in their search. Furthermore, the visibility in this part of the forest was quite low. As the sky gradually darkened, the light in the forest became darker and deeper than outside. This made it even more difficult for Yi Qian and the others to search. The light was getting dimmer and dimmer, and it was getting harder and harder to find traces. Their physical strength was also depleting with time. However, they had no way to stop, nor could they find a better way. They could only continue forward. While there was still light, the five of them increased their speed and tried to shorten the distance between them and the four felons. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the light in the forest was so dim that they could only see the silhouettes of the people nearby. Any further and it would be pitch black. Yi Qian, who was always on high alert, slowed down his pace under Li Xian's signal. The second deep hole. Li Wei carefully looked at the deep hole that had appeared again. These deep holes did not seem deep. Although they were covered by vines, they were actually unfathomably deep. If there were no vines covering them, they would be separated by yin and yang. As soon as he said that, the four armed police soldiers were stunned. Less than a month? What happened last December? They were very surprised, but they knew that it wasn't convenient for them to continue asking. The only reason he was willing to tell them the truth was probably to make them feel more at ease. She told them that she wasn't a burden and that she had real combat experience. Yi Qian was indeed thinking this way. She didn't want Li Xian and the other soldiers to not believe her at the most critical moment. With Yi Qian's words, Li Xian and the other soldiers felt a lot more at ease. The four of them gave Yi Qian a thumbs up to show their admiration. However, it was a little too dark. No matter how good Yi Qian's eyesight was, she could only see the movements of the four soldiers, but she couldn't tell what they were doing. The short break quickly passed, and the 5 soldiers once again moved forward in the dark. They knew that they were getting closer and closer to the criminal in front of them, so the 5 of them moved very slowly. They tried their best not to make any noise when they passed through the forest to avoid being discovered. After about half an hour of moving forward, Yi Qian, who was with Li Xian, let out the chirping of a night bird. They discovered something and stopped moving forward. Chapter 56-94. The Great Red Star lives up to your expectations. They didn't find any traces of the 4 felons, but there was another smell in the damp and decaying air. It came from the human bladder and was mainly made up of water. This was the smell that Yi Qian smelled. It was very faint, hidden in the damp and stuffy air, floating faintly. If it was any other time, she would naturally hold her breath when she smelled this smell. But now, the smell in the air didn't make her hold her breath. Instead, it made her very excited. There's the smell of urine in the air. It's very faint. Yi Qian finished speaking in a low voice. Hong Miao's nose twitched. Wearing night vision goggles, he looked at the slender figure hidden in front of him and whispered, "Why can't I smell it?" Not only did Hong Miao not smell it, Li Xian, Lu Wei, and the other soldier, Jiao Xiaotu, didn't smell it either. They only smelled one kind of smell, and that was the damp and stuffy smell that only came from the dense forest. Yi Qian, who had a very keen sense of smell, had helped Xia Jinyuan find the suspects a long, long time ago, on the day he first met Xia Jinyuan. Now, she was very sure that there were traces left behind by the felons nearby. There is, but it's very faint. It hasn't completely evaporated. When the sun comes up tomorrow, the smell will be even stronger. Yi Qian, who was resting against a tree, chuckled softly and teased the 4 soldiers. "Who knows, you might have stepped on it." Hong Miao silently lowered his head. "Take care of your eyes if you read for a long time." He looked at where he was standing and took a deep breath. Yes, he definitely didn't step on it. He didn't smell it. He didn't smell it at all. Stop smelling it. It's still fresh. Your nose can't smell it. Jiao Xiaotu, who was standing with his back pressed against Yi Qian's, heard his comrade's movements. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. If I really stepped on it, then I stepped on it too. The 2 of them were in the middle. Yi Qian and Li Xian were in front, while Lu Wei was guarding the rear. Lu Wei stealthily changed to a new hiding spot. He hid in a place with dense foliage. With his fingers on the microphone, he said with a smile, "I didn't smell it from behind, Yi Qian. Maybe you've already stepped on some fresh liquid." He did not pay attention to whether or not he stepped on Yi Qian. However, Lu Wei was right. It was indeed a fresh liquid. He had just stayed here not long ago, and it was very dewy at night. In addition, the border town had been drizzling these past few days, so the smell was very faint. Tomorrow, as the water evaporated, the urea precipitated, and the ammonia gas would become stronger and stronger. By then, the 4 of them would have run far away. The other party had probably thought of this as well, which was why they didn't care about leaving any traces behind. Unfortunately, they ran into Yi Qian, who had a keen sense of smell. The matter that they had to hold their breaths became evidence of how far away they were. From the sap flowing out of the broken branches that they saw around the deep pit, the light and unpleasant smell, and the time they had left the village, they could roughly estimate that the distance between them and the scene was no more than 3 kilometers. If the distance between them and the scene was no more than 3 kilometers, It indicated that a fierce battle was not far away. The closer they got, the more they could not stop moving forward. They had to completely see the figures of the four felons. The world of the night vision goggles was a black and white world. Other than black and white, there was nothing else to hide. On the tree, a black shadow suddenly leaped over their heads. It was agile and light and soon disappeared. It was a small animal that lived in the jungle. It could be a red panda or a monkey. In the dense tropical rainforest, it was not uncommon to see small movements of foraging for food at night. However, due to the special circumstances, when a small black shadow suddenly passed over their heads, it was inevitable that their hearts would jump a few times. Chapter 56-95. In fighting Yi Qian, who had a strong psychological quality, swallowed and continued to move carefully with Li Xian. Soon, they forgot about the unknown little black shadow. The five of them stopped communicating with each other and walked extremely slowly. They kept moving in the same direction as the four felons. Their movements were so light that they didn't even disturb the night birds. After about 400 meters, they suddenly heard the sound of night birds flying in front of them. It was not one, but several birds. They were chirping and flapping their wings, rushing into the dark night. The five people walking in the black and white world looked up at the same time and looked at the sky where the branches intertwined and divided the whole sky into pieces of different shapes and sizes. Yi Qian's voice was very soft. The night birds are flying in the sky. It's very likely that they are in front of us. They have been rushing without rest. He walked with great difficulty, and if he wasn't careful, he would disturb the birds sleeping at night. Let's keep moving. Li Xian withdrew her gaze from the sky and looked colder and colder. She hoped that it was really the four felons who made the noise. At this time, Ma Gang's whole face darkened. The gun in her hand instantly stopped the noise again. 3,237. How many times have you made a mistake? You've implicated us again and again. Do you want to die? Sometimes he fell into a deep pit and needed them to pull him up. Sometimes he broke the branches, and the crackling sound startled the birds that were resting at night. He made mistakes again and again, which made Ma Gang completely lose patience with Engi. If it weren't for the fact that shooting would cause more noise, she would really shoot this damn guy to death. Ong Yi, who was dizzy from the fall, had not recovered from the shock. When he looked up, he saw the cold gun against his head. The anger in his heart was no less than Ma Gang's, and the killing intent was no less than Ma Gang's. He said a swear word, which probably meant something like, "Fuck you." Ma Gang immediately loaded the gun without hesitation. The felon closest to him, number 5367, had been guarding against Ma Gang, who pointed the gun at people. When he heard that the gun was loaded, he held Ma Gang's wrist without saying a word. Think about the consequences if you shoot. You don't want to die, and we don't want to die either. Shoot, shoot. I'm not afraid of death. If you have the ability, come, shoot me. I'll F*King send my F*King head over for you to open. Engi was not a good-tempered person. He had a gun pointed at his head. If he backed down now, he would not be a man. He leaned forward and used his head to push against the muzzle of the gun. Even when his head hurt, he did not retract his head. 5367 raised his foot and kicked the stupid Engi down. Engi, who was in a tight spot, did not guard against 5367. The kick made him fall back hard. With a swish sound, he hurriedly stretched out his hands to grab the branches on both sides to stabilize his body. 5367 did not care about Engi. He pressed down on Ma Gang's wrist and pointed the gun at the ground. You are a very smart woman. A smart woman shouldn't make stupid mistakes. Bringing him along with you was the wrong decision you made in the beginning. You thought it was ruthless enough to kill a few more people. He only killed people around the city. He has never entered the mountains. You, me, and the Kachin people, the three of us have come and gone from the mountains. We are very used to the mountain roads and the night roads. End of chapter. (5367), who had been walking at the back, changed his position with the Kachin people. He walked behind the idiot 3237. They were all a group of ruthless people. They had originally joined forces to escape. Now there was one person in the middle who could implicate them at any time. Then, leaving him alive would be a hidden danger. Hidden dangers could not be left alive. They had to be eliminated. 5367's arm strength was quite amazing. He strangled Anya's neck with his elbow from behind. Magong wanted to help, but he didn't give Magong a chance. He didn't give Anya a chance to struggle. He twisted his elbow hard, and the crisp sound of broken bones came. Anya, who had just stretched out his hand to brush the branches in front of him, fell down. He didn't make a sound and didn't struggle for a second. He didn't even know how he died. It was very likely that he was killed by 5367 with a calm expression on his face. An hour later, Yi Qian and the others passed by the place where Anya was killed. While searching, Jiao Xiaotu saw a hand sticking out from behind a rock. Lu Wei, Hong Miao Miao, and Jiao Xiaotu were on guard. Yi Qian and Li Xian quickly slid down the mountain. In order to be fast, the two of them sat down and slid all the way down. Chapter 5697. Ma Gang clenched her teeth tightly. That's right, bringing along this stupid 3237 was indeed her biggest mistake. The regretful Ma Gang put away the gun and no longer pointed it at Angie. She was just trying to scare Angie. She didn't really want to shoot him. She knew very well what the consequences would be. Not shooting didn't mean that Magong would let Angie go. She wanted to kill Angie. Are we still going? If not, find a place to rest as soon as possible. Rest well and leave tomorrow. The Kachin man opened his mouth. He did not care who shot who. None of them were his people, so it did not matter to him who died. What he was most concerned about now was whether he should leave or not. If he didn't want to leave, then he would rest. It just so happened that he was very tired. They were all exhausted and didn't want to walk anymore. Ma Gang also didn't want to leave, but when she thought of the helicopter flying over her head during the day, she immediately said in a deep voice, "No, continue walking." After that, he turned to Angie, who was silent. "Sooner or later, you will die because of your own stupidity." If she didn't get rid of him, she didn't know if he would cause any more trouble. She was used to killing people with guns or knives in bed. She didn't know how to kill people directly. Ma narrowed his eyes and was about to kill someone with a borrowed knife. The helicopters that flew by during the day were all camouflage. Those were the military helicopters of the Chinese army. My boss said that the Chinese armed police will often patrol the mountains, especially during the big Chinese festivals. Their patrols will be even closer than usual, and they will be vigilant and alert everywhere. What if there are armed police patrolling behind us? 3237, your stupidity will definitely attract the armed police. You've already made the same mistake several times. Once there's a beginning, there won't be an end. You'll definitely make the same mistake again. I'm sure of it. After saying a bunch of things, he finally got to the main point. With armed police patrolling, they would commit more crimes and attract the attention of the armed police. In the end, the four of them were chased by the armed police. "Heh, this is Chinese territory. Can you escape?" As soon as Ma conveyed his intention, he looked at the other two felons who were used to walking in the mountains. The Kachin people didn't think much of it. 5367 lowered his eyes slightly and said, "Stop talking nonsense and continue walking." There was no response, which made Ma Gang a little disappointed. But soon, a smile appeared in Ma Gang's eyes. 5367, who had been walking at the back, changed his position with the Kachin people. He walked behind the idiot 3237. They were all a group of ruthless people. They had originally joined forces to escape. Now there was one person in the middle who could drag him down at any time. Then, leaving him alive would be a hidden danger. Hidden dangers could not be left alive. They had to be eliminated. 5367's arm strength was quite amazing. He strangled Anya's neck with his elbow from behind. Magong wanted to help, but he didn't give Magong a chance. He didn't give Anya a chance to struggle. He twisted his elbow hard, and the crisp sound of broken bones came. Anya, who had just stretched out his hand to brush the branches in front of him, fell down. He did not make a single sound, nor did he struggle for even a second. He did not even know how he died. It was very likely that even his expression was very calm as he was killed by 5367, just like that. An hour later, Yi Qian and the others passed by the place where Anya was killed. While searching, Jiao Xiaotu saw a hand crookedly poking out from behind a rock. Lu Wei, Hong Miao Miao, and Jiao Xiaotu were on guard. Yi Qian and Li Xian quickly slid down the mountain. For the sake of speed, the two of them sat down and slid all the way down. Tip: enter Panda Literature in the search engine and you will find this site. Thank you. Chapter 5697, Panda Literature. Chapter 5698. Trash. Facing these leeches that would make one's scalp go numb, the warriors shuttling through the forest pulled them down and casually tossed them aside. They couldn't crush it yet. If they did, the blood that the leeches had sucked would flow out. The blood would spread into the air, and there would be a faint bloody smell. When that happened, they would have to spend time to cover up the bloody smell. To them, who were in a hurry, it would be better to just throw it away and save time. The treetops swayed slightly. The silhouette was like a mountain spirit, silently and swiftly advancing. The 5 people searching, including Yi Qian, did not know when they would actually catch up. Perhaps they would catch up in an hour, or perhaps it would take several hours. Deep in the mountains and forests between the Sar River and the Mekong River in Myanmar, a few jeeps passed through the dense forest and finally stopped in front of a row of white walls and black tiles, which looked like the houses of the Jiangnan River in China. 2 soldiers in military uniforms with rifles on their backs quickly ran to the second jeep, opened the door, and saluted the middle-aged man in the car. The middle-aged man wasn't tall, but he was well-built. His skin was dark, and he had a pair of eagle eyes that could intimidate people at night. He was General Minlai, a powerful figure who had his own army. General Minlai, who was walking in the middle with soldiers standing guard on both sides, had an exceptionally cold expression on his face. The corners of his mouth were pressed tightly together, and the aura he exuded as he walked made even the adjutant beside him feel pressured. This was one of General Minlai's garrisons, and there were about 1,000 or so soldiers here. The officer in charge of this place had already come over to greet them. As soon as he approached and saluted, General Minlai raised his hand and slapped him hard across the face. "Trash!" he scolded the officer. His voice was harsh and deep, like a cold current that poured in, causing the officer who had been slapped to reveal a terrified expression. Instead of lecturing the officer outside, General Minlai entered the room and sat in the large chair that the officer usually sat in. He took off his military cap and casually tossed it to the adjutant beside him. The adjutant immediately caught it and held it for himself instead of handing it to the soldiers accompanying him. The accompanying soldiers were to protect General Minlai at all times. They had to hold their guns in their hands at all times, and the bullets in their guns had to be loaded at all times. If they noticed anything strange, they could fire immediately. When the officer entered and saw General Minlai's dark expression, his heart sank. I handed him over to you and told you to protect him well. You didn't do it and got caught by the police. I don't have to settle this with you. When you work for me, there will always be people who fall at the front. After that, she escaped. The adjutant personally contacted you and told you to find Ma Gang and not let her fall into the hands of other forces. In the end, you actually let her escape to China. Looking at his subordinate who couldn't even do a small thing for him, General Minlai was furious. He suddenly raised his leg and kicked the other party's calf. General Minlai was no ordinary person. His skills and marksmanship were top-notch, and he was also a boxer. His arms and legs were filled with strength. This kick sent the officer flying 2 to 3 meters back. In the end, he landed hard on his butt. His face was deathly pale, without a trace of blood. The Chinese armed police have been looking for a breakthrough for me. Ma Gang has always been in charge of the Chinese market. Now that she has escaped into the Chinese territory, once she is targeted by the Chinese armed police and interrogated, even if you kill all 18 of your family members, it will not be able to appease the anger in my heart. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine and you will find this website. Thank you. Trash. Chapter 5699. Killing Intent. General. The officer, whose face was pale from the pain in his lower abdomen, was scared out of his wits. He crawled all the way to General Minlai's feet and said, "General, I sent 10 soldiers to look for Ma Gang, but she didn't leave any way to contact her. When I found out that she had escaped into China, I didn't dare to hide it from you. I immediately contacted the adjutant and sent people into China to look for Ma Gang. As soon as they saw her, they would bring her back to see you immediately. General, Ma Gang is a very capable woman. She does things very strangely. She doesn't trust anyone except herself. I asked her 4 bodyguards, and they all said that Ma Gang had never contacted them. General, with Ma Gang's caution, even if she escaped into China, she wouldn't be targeted by the Chinese armed police. She would definitely find a way to come back." The officer believed that General Minlai, whom he was loyal to, was not joking. He would do what he said. Ma Gang, this woman, he had cooperated with her many times. He had seen her cunning, and he hated this woman who was unwilling to share any of the credit. But now, the lives of his family of 18 were all in her hands. If nothing happened to her in China, his family would be fine. If something happened to her and she fell into the hands of the Chinese armed police, then his family. The officer didn't dare to think too deeply. He shuddered and said, "General, please give me another chance. Let me bring Ma Gang back to your side. Tell the people you sent to deal with Ma Gang as soon as they see her. There's no need to bring her back." General Minlai gave the order. Ma Gang didn't trust anyone. Similarly, he wouldn't trust a subordinate who escaped to China and could still come back in the end. The officer was a little puzzled by such an order, but it was General Minlai's personal order. He just needed to carry it out. "Yes, General," the officer immediately responded solemnly. He no longer had the important task of bringing Ma Gang back. Instead, he had the important task of killing her directly. Since it was the general's personal order, he could take this opportunity to kill Ma Gang, the woman he hated very much. The adjutant beside General Minlai explained to the officer, "The police have already sent Ma Gang's information to the Chinese armed police and asked them to search for her. With the ability of the Chinese armed police, Ma Gang has just appeared, and the chances of her escaping are very small. If she really did escape, it's very likely that the Chinese side intentionally let her go. As long as your men see her, they must deal with her immediately. Don't give her another chance to escape. Ma Gang is very smart. You didn't succeed the first time, so it's hard for you to have a second chance." General Minlai would not use a subordinate who was targeted by the Chinese armed police, no matter how capable he was. Ma Gang was very clear about this point. This was also one of the main reasons why she persisted in her journey and did not dare to rest at all. After dealing with Angie, Ma Gang, Song Xing, and Vala walked a lot faster. Logically speaking, a woman's physical fitness was definitely not as good as a man's, but Ma Gang was different. She maintained her speed and did not need the help of two men. Even if her feet had blisters, Ma Gang did not say a word. She walked like a robot, and her endurance was so strong that it surprised Song Xing and Vala. Tip: enter Panda Literature into the search engine and you will find this website. Thank you. Murderous Intent. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.